darkness surrounds me, shape-shifting in the night, stalking you. Does my face seem familiar? Does my back feel you more? Will I change you or will it end you? And the power that I have could give you eternal life. Death doesn't know me. I've become eternal. When the hunger wakes me, I live to feed. With the darkness surrounds me, where the mist, she follows me. I walk alone in the night, watching you, following you, leading on you through the night. When the hunger wakes me, I live to feed. With the darkness surrounds me. Oh, your life, I was still. I become the living dead. I own the darkness and know how it beats inside of me. I become eternal. When the hunger wakes me, I live to feed. With the darkness surrounds me. Change inside of me. The inner human slowly dead in me. I feel it come alive. The darkness brings me light. There ain't no stopping it, and you will never hide from me. Pain of the change. What have I become? A creature of the night, ruled by moonlight. The pain of the change. This body's no longer mine. Feel wild and free, but caged at the same time.
bedroom shadows, cloaked and haunting me, cold hand touching me, fear overwhelming me, tapping at my window. I can't bear to open my eyes, a breath on my neck, floating apparitions everywhere. Go to sleep with the light on, I wake up paralyzed. Ghostly apparition hovering over me, asking what it wants to know. I'm shaking now, it calls out my name, cloaked and haunting me, cold hand touching me, fear overwhelming me, tapping at my window. I can't bear to open my eyes, a breath on my neck, floating apparitions everywhere. Go to sleep with the light on, I wake up paralyzed.
How's it going, folks? See all the lovely people in the chat here. Don't forget to like and subscribe, folks. My team has been getting on to me about not telling you that. Like, you got to tell people to like and subscribe.
Yeah, because they listen to
Otherwise-
you, not me.
Otherwise, we don't know if they like you or not. I want to clarify something too. You know, we're not going to talk about anything other than the show tonight. I said what I had to say, the mass reporting and all that. We talked about it. That's it. We're done. I want to thank everybody who's a supporter of the show and who's been with us since the beginning. Or if you came later, or if you're a new supporter, either way, thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of what we're doing. Thank you for that donation, Kelly Sandiford. I'm not going to lie. It's greatly appreciated right now, especially if your name is not in green, get it in green so you can be a part of the giveaways. We're going to start doing the giveaways every Wednesday. We're coming up with a new email. Did you do it?
Not yet. So to get it set up is kind of complicated.
Yeah, we're going to have it. We're going to have an email address we're going to start giving you, and it's just for the giveaways. Just for the giveaways, because we can't have what's happening right now. Let me just get into that real quick because we're waiting for people to join the chat. What's happening right now is we have people who are they're sending in their stories, right? And the stories are mixing in with the hey, I want a giveaway. And it's all jumbled up. And then we're missing some of the people. We'll do the mail off, and there'll be one or two people who get left out.
Yeah, so we got to get it organized. But yeah, so that new email is just going to be for like if you win the giveaway, then rather than sending your information to the Josh Turner at PRTpodcast.com, we're going to come up with another one that's just for giveaways, and it'll just keep it nice and organized, and to make things easier so the stories don't get mixed in with emails from people saying, hey, I won this, or hey, this and that.
Yeah.
You know?
And by stories, we mean encounters that
Yeah.
we tell as stories.
Your personal experiences.
Yeah. And so one of the things we want to do, and also it's going to be for Patreon giveaways too.
Mhm.
So not just like, hey, I'm a giveaway winner, but you owe us a swag bag. So everything on that email is based around sending out merch. That's what it's for.
Yeah, because Patreon has its own a message system, but some people might have a little bit of trouble figuring it out. It's not that user friendly. If you're familiar with Patreon, there's like direct messages and there's like a group chat, and it's kind of hard to know like which is which for some people. So we're just trying to make it easier for everyone to communicate. That's all.
Yeah. Yes, Stacy, it's one specific email, and it's for the giveaways. It's for people who need to get their merchandise, their stuff. So reading some of the comments here. Yeah, Kez says thanks, for giving you the birthday wishes. Absolutely. I try to do that every day. I try to do I try to do that. Still not 100% feeling good. Still got a cough. It's going away slowly, but I'm still not able to exercise.
Just keeps lingering.
Yeah, it's lingering. It's just sucks, man. It's doing what it's doing. Mm-hmm. Anything else we need to talk about? Oh, join the Patreon, guys. We had the Patreon show on Monday, and it was awesome. We had a great time. It was fun. It's sort of a smaller, cozy chat.
Mm-hmm.
And we had people telling their encounters and stuff.
Just feels more personal and laid back.
Yeah.
People seem to be more relaxed in there.
And then we went from there to do a live stream, and most of the Patreon people followed us. And then we had a bunch more people show up. We ended up with like 300 and something for the Monday show.
Yeah.
It was an impromptu show. We talked about Ghost and Dogman. This show here is going to be very specific. And we have gotten lots of reports of this stuff, a lot. But we haven't sifted through all of it. But a couple people whose stories we did sift through, one of them was a guy named Simon. And Simon got in touch with me. Well, it's 2023. First time he got in touch with me, 2023. Now, I'm not going to lie. When the first email I read, and he knows this, I'm not being disparaging him. It was kind of all over the place.
Mm-hmm.
Sounded cool, but it was like, well, and I had actually gone over his email, I believe, I think it was Nick Valente and a couple other people. I just was like, what do you think of this? And it was like, well, it's interesting if it's real. But so I kind of passed it off to another YouTuber, and they were not able to get in touch with him. Reason being, he didn't want to talk to them, I guess. I say, I guess. I know that's why. So Wedge says, if you haven't watched, check the interview. Yeah, that was last night. Yeah. We got 2 more weeks of that. In the third episode, she talks about these creatures she saw. One is like a goblin, another one's a werewolf, and it gets really. It's just how I interview people, like talk to people. That's how I talk to people like that. And we just recorded it, and we didn't really edit anything out. We just left it in there. Like, This is how I do it.
It's very conversational.
Yeah. So if you want to see kind of like how it works, this is me just talking to somebody. Of course, me and her are friends, we've talked quite a bit, but it's just how I talk to anybody who I get to know pretty well. Spilling tea, how you doing? What's up, Chris? Chris is still high on the fact that his Eagles won the Super Bowl. I would be really stoked if it wasn't all rigged now, Chris. Like, I'd be like, yeah, my team won. But now it's like, what does it matter?
I'm just glad the Chiefs didn't win.
Yeah, I was glad the Chiefs didn't win. When I saw that it was like 30 something to whatever. I was like, yeah, good. They're not going to win. And I never rooted for the Eagles in my life.
Yeah. For one day, we rooted for them, for your team, Chris.
Yeah. Unless it benefits like the Cowboys or the Texans, I don't care.
Yeah.
I'm happy that you guys won. Congratulations, Chris. Except for the fact that they burned down the city and destroyed it. Have you seen the videos of them all on meth destroying the city? Well, they drink meth because it's in the water.
Well, they melted into their coffee.
Yeah, and they petitioned to keep the fluoride in Philadelphia too. Did you know that?
Are you being facetious, or
they want meth? They want not meth. They want fluoride in their water.
Well, maybe meth too.
Well, they drink meth too.
Yeah,
everybody in Philly does.
yeah,
that's a prerequisite to be in Philly.
Yeah, but they actually petitioned to keep the fluoride in their water.
So he said that would have happened either way. Yeah, they love fluoride and meth. Yeah. Look at Chris. He's like, that's not what I said. What's what you said? That's what the computer say. What the
He said, I don't drink math.
Hey, Monica. Monica showed up. She's like, I heard y'all talking about me over here. That was yesterday. He's like, I don't drink meth. Math? He didn't say meth. He said, I don't drink math. He's like, I don't drink math.
You're too busy tweaking, Chris. He's all them typos.
Too much better. We won the Super Bowl. Time to go out and hoop and holler and destroy. Give me a Molotov cocktail right now. I need it. Look, Tweak, calm down. But congratulations to the Eagles, because guess what? I did put a little bit on the Eagles. I said, look, man, it was just a friendly bet with a friend. It was $30. And he was so determined to believe that the Chiefs were going to win. I said, well, yeah, you got the refs on your side. I said, look, man, I'll put $30 down, but chances are the Eagles are going to lose because the refs are going to cheat for the Chiefs. And they tried a little bit, but it was too little too late. The Eagles just beat the crap out of them, thank goodness. Can't believe I'm saying that. But he was willing to give me $50 back. He still hasn't paid me. He said, oh, you owe me some money from back in 2000 because, back in the day, I bought you a piece of pizza or something. I'm like, come on, man. Come on.
Like on Friday, man, you owe me $2.
It's like somebody holding grudges from 1999. Can you believe that? I found that out.
26-year-old grudges?
Yeah, somebody's holding a grudge against me. They've been attacking me.
I wonder when the birthday of that grudge is.
I don't know. They're nuts, though. They're all like, I'm not going to say the name of the person. We've uncovered it because we figured out who it was. But like everybody who's always messing around, they're always buzzing around it. Yeah, we know. And apparently they know me from downtown. So that's how long they've been holding a grudge. 1999. I think I met him in 98. So that's a long time to hold a grudge, man. But let me tell you something. Hispanic people, they can hold a grudge.
Oh, yeah.
Forever. My mother, world champion grudge holders.
We got that machismo pride.
They have that pride. They can't let it go. When Scorpion, where's he at? He's a grudge holder. He's not in the chat.
That's why he's not in the chat.
He's not in the chat because we're talking about grudges. So we're letting some people join or whatever. But what we got tonight is very, very interesting. It's very – I didn't even know how to tell you. When Simon reached out to me, and I try to vet the guy as best I can. He checks out. He was actually in the military. He really was who he says he was. Not going to say his full name, and but he introduced me to another guy named Denny. Now that guy, and that's not his birth name, but that's what they call him. That's what they call him, Denny. And now I've talked to a few people from the military base that they, went there, they worked with, and one of them was there at the same time. I wouldn't call this guy a mutual. I don't know him that well, but he is somebody who gave me a story from Iraq, right? And they said, look, you can ask so-and-so. I was on a base with him. He was at Fort Campbell, right? But that's not the military base we're talking about. This military base we're talking about, I'm not going to say the name of it because I don't want people going over there and getting arrested. Because people will do silly and weird things, and we don't know why. Well, it's curiosity. It's human nature. But this particular military base is one of the largest military bases in all of North America. And apparently, according to the first guy, he says, man, he's like, I can't give you as much information as this other person, but I know a guy who claims this, and that. But this person told me his story. Now, I'll start with his. What he told me was pretty mind-blowing in and of itself. He was at a military base, in Kentucky. And he claims that they were these deep underground military bunkers, DUMBs, as they call them. And he told me a wild story. He says one time, he goes, I was on a guard detail and he was walking the fence line, a perimeter. And he says that what he believes was a Bigfoot. It looked like a Bigfoot type creature. I mean, there's no other way to describe it other than, I'm not even going to get into a full-on description, a brownish haired, chocolate haired creature, large ape-like, tried to assault the fence, as he said. And this guy was an MP. He was called out to go and deal with this situation. He actually, I should back it up. He didn't actually see the creature with his own eyes. It was seen on camera, and he was dispatched to deal with it. He was told not to fire unless it goes into it goes over the perimeter, which it did. But it moved so quickly. So when he gets back to the HQ where he's supposed to be checking in, this sergeant major comes down and talks to him and tells him, he says, he says, this happens quite a bit. And you've only been here for a couple of weeks, but you're going to have to get accustomed to it because sometimes things get loose and run around. And he's like, when the guy left, he thought about it and he asked one of the other NCOs that he was talking to, and he's like, what is he talking about? What the hell does that mean when things get loose? Because that's what he said. And when the guy said it, he just kind of said it real quick, kind of rambling, and just that was it. Hold on one second, folks. Give me 1 second. And so he says, when things get loose. So he goes, after a couple weeks go by, and I'm sorry, I apologize. Sometimes people say that it's rude to look at your phone. I was told that in someone else's deal last night. They said I'm rude because I look at my phone. Well, I have notes on my phone, folks. The notes, the keywords that you can, that's why I look at my phone. That, and I have work to do. I have to continue doing work. So if you find that rude, I'm sorry. Oh, well, it's tough. What we won't do, though, and I'm going to go ahead and say this right now before we go any further, is people coming into our chat, because they're doing it in other people's chats too, and I think it's systematic. Okay, I really do. Don't come into our chat and be talking about stuff that has nothing to do with what we're talking about. If you want to discuss, you say hi and everything, that's cool. But you want to discuss paranormal stuff or what we're talking about, if it's along the same vein, great. But if it's just some random, hey, I washed my hair and I blow dried it. It's raining outside. Let me put a tarp over this car. I don't want to hear about that. And nobody else needs to either. And if you do that, you're probably going to get booted and blocked, and then you'll become one of my enemies and start going around saying what a meanie poo-poo cacahead I am. I'm willing to accept that. I got enough people that do that already. Go to Reddit and join the rest of the crap. Join the people that are holding grudges from 1999, right? Because you probably got beat up at the club or something. Something happened to you. Shouldn't have been acting a fool. How about that? Or you just weren't as tough as you thought you were, right? Is that what it is? So this is what we're doing. We're talking about this right now, cloning, werewolves, vampires, whatever. If you're not into that, go somewhere else, please. Or just don't join the chat, right? Well, thank you, JJ, for that, for saying that. Joe, thank you for that donation. Always good to see you, Joe. Yeah, I don't think it's rude, but I was told that I'm rude for doing that. And I didn't start an argument in someone else's chat. Somebody popped in and just started talking about everything but what was going on. And I said something. I'm like, dude, don't be rude to the guest and the host. Because I was trying to hear what this guy had to say. And for me, I take it personal because I don't get a lot of time. I don't have a lot of time to listen to other people's shows and pay attention. And so when I do, I don't want there to be this distraction in a chat because it was distracting me. So I had to literally put my phone down. And then later I was told that somebody had popped off. Well, I know why, because they're a supporter of this other person that doesn't like us. Well, like I said, go stand in the Josh Turner hate line. Don't care. You're all irrelevant. It doesn't matter. You're not going to succeed. All right. So that being said, I don't want to have to repeat this. Just please, if you're listening to this right now, don't do it. Don't come into my chat and start popping and saying all kinds of stupid crap. I don't care what happened to you today and how many different whatever. I mean, if it's something that's pertinent to what we're talking about, yeah. Or if you want to say, oh, I've had a rough day, I'm here to listen, whatever, great. But that was ridiculous. Just come in there and start talking about blow drying your hair and everything else, and just kept doing it. Just disrupting the chat. That's what you're doing. And it's not going to be tolerated anymore in our chat. I don't care who you are. If you're doing that, you're gone. That's it. People want to hear what we have to say. That's why they're here. They're not here to hear about the best blow dryer from China. I know I don't give a crap about that. I don't care about a tarp and a this and that. It was a bunch of crap. And it was obviously a distraction. And that particular individual has a habit now. I've seen it. I've watched the pattern. I've been paying attention. They go to other people's chats and they do that. And they've messed with some friends of mine. So they're no longer welcome here. And if you know who you are, don't bother. Don't come in. You're free to listen. But I don't want to see you in my chat. And if you come, I'm going to ban you. I saw what you did yesterday. And I saw you, the little friends of yours that were in there and they were backing you up. I know who you are. No more tolerance of any of this crap. Okay? Enough is enough of all this nonsense. We need to get to work. We have a lot to do. We don't have time to be wasting on these people. I've already told you what they did. They mass reported us, whatever. Feel free to go report them, but do it correctly. If they're saying disparaging things, if they're just talking about the paranormal, why waste your time? We don't need to lay down and watch every second of them like they do us. We're entertaining. They're not. It's like watching paint dry. I get it. It's excruciating. So if they're talking disparaging people, not just me, but other people, then report them. They need to be reported. If they're lying and not telling the truth. Now, if they're telling the truth, not much you can do. If they say, Josh Turner's got a fat head, well, it might be a matter of like opinion, but they're not really lying.
I mean, you
kind of do got a fat head. So he's a big fat head. Well, not much I can do about that. Even though I've lost 44 pounds, the head's still fat. I don't know what's going on. It's going to be what it is, folks. Okay.
I feel uncomfortable around your head, considering the size of mine. It's like intimidating.
Wow.
I have a tiny head.
That's awesome. I'm glad that my head could bully yours without even saying anything.
Yeah.
With nothing that comes out of it's bullying you. It's just intimidating head.
It's just a massive size of it.
Oh my gosh, this guy.
Mine is this size, and then yours like takes up.
Well, you also have a tiny little body. Well, no, you have a bigger body because I mean you're not light. You're 200 pounds, but I mean that's people don't realize you're actually not a little guy because you're very muscular. But you do have a scrawny head.
Yeah. I skipped head day in the gym.
You skipped head day. You're like, and realize all you do is working your neck. I have a thick neck too.
I chilled out listening to heavy metal years ago, so I chilled out with the headbang, and now my head shrunk up.
Mitty says, actually, your head looks a lot smaller. Thank you. Unless you're talking to Anthony, I don't know. Anyways, enough of that. I had to say that. I had to get that out there because that has just gotten to the point where it's gotten ridiculous. You go into somebody's chat, he's a friend of yours, and then you got to watch these people do all that. I'll be right back, and then we'll continue with this story. All right, so here's what we got going on here. Let me get my drink open here. Topo Chico. Y'all ever drink these? This one has the lemon lime. It's just like a seltzer water. So the first guy that got in touch with me, he says, look, I can get another person to talk to you and verify what I'm saying. I'll be honest, I didn't even follow through with everything because I had a lot going on and there was all these other stuff, coming in. And I had guests to talk to and get ready, and I had stories to put out there, and I just didn't have time to. And at the time, I wasn't real sure. My views on things have grown, evolved, and changed over the course of this show. And so what this person was telling me, it makes a lot of sense, especially now that I've had time to go back and digest what they were getting at. A couple of months ago, they got back in touch with me, because it was coming up and it was going around about the vampire werewolf thing a few months ago, I guess. And they were talking about the clones. So what this guy was told at this one particular base, military base, he was told that these beings exist beyond the perimeter. And when he asked about their origin and where they came from, one of the other guys that he was with told him that he believed that they came within the earth. He says, "You're kidding me." He says, "No, we're on top of a cave system. We're on top of it." And he was told that the one guy used to work there told his other dude. So it was like a person told somebody. And he had clearance to go down 2.5 miles down within the earth. At 2.5 miles, there was like this way station or a checkpoint. And that's where only certain people with certain clearance could go any further. This guy couldn't go any further. But what he was told, the person that told him this, said that beyond that, at the 3-mile mark down there, was a holding center. And there was an open area. Once they opened these 2 double doors, they called it the Wild. They could walk out into that area, but you entered at your own risk, and they only did it in 5 to 6 man fire teams. This guy the one that told me, he said, look, he said, according to this man, he worked with a guy. Now, like I said, take it for what it is, because it's one person telling another person, and that person's retelling it. And then it gets to me. And I'm not changing anything or making it sound more cool. I'm just going to tell you what this man said to me. Now, like I said, this guy really was in the military. It checks out. He showed me a DD-214. I believe him. I don't think it's fake. DD-214 is basically your discharge paperwork. I said, look, if I'm going to entertain this, you need to show me something. And it took him a few days, but he got back around to it, and he showed me. He was an NCO. How you doing, Abe? There's spiritual encrypted encounters. He was basically like Abe. Abe was Sergeant C. This guy was a sergeant. So, and this guy, he told me, he says, look, what I was shown and told by this one individual I worked with was that he worked with another guy who had the clearance, who had since retired. Now, this was back in the early 2000s, right? Well, I wouldn't say early. This was mid 2000s, because one of them had already gone over to Iraq. And that's where the other guy was that originally saw this. He saw this when he was down in what they called the Wild. When he went into this, he was part of a team that was there to back up the first team. What he saw, now it doesn't surprise me. The late Armando Salazar, he told us some pretty wild things. But this guy had originally reached out to him. Originally. And then a couple of years ago, he reached back out to me because he never got back. Well, I don't have access to Armando's files. Not all of them. Some of them, yeah. And so one of the things that he saw was that on this front team, he was the backup team, and they were there to retrieve what they called an asset, right? The first team was made up of 6 individuals. His team had 5 individuals. He said, on my team, it was pretty diverse. There were 2 Hispanic guys and 3 white guys. There were no African Americans, but on the other team, there were 2 African Americans, 2 Hispanic, and 2 white guys. Right? Taste the rainbow, right?
Yeah.
You had all of this, whatever.
Had s'mores going on, black, white, and brown.
It wasn't so odd that there were definitely 2 Caucasian men, 2 Hispanic men, 2 black men, except for one big detail. The 2 African Americans looked like twins. The 2 Hispanic guys looked like twins, and the 2 white guys looked like twins. So one could maybe make the argument that they chose 3 sets of twins, right? But it gets deeper. These guys would not communicate with them. They had headsets on, and they were only told to follow their lead. They went in, they walked around for about 2 miles into what appeared to be a lush, thriving forest that had what he described as a dim sun in the distance. Right? Shades of the smoky god, right? When these guys walked around, they said, hey, all is clear. They didn't even know what they were supposed to do. They were only supposed to just follow their lead and back them up. And they stayed about 30 to 40 yards ahead of them. After a few miles, 2 miles in, 2 miles back, everything was, I guess, okay. They didn't find what they were looking for. That's when he saw the debriefing going on. His team wasn't briefed or anything. They were just told, do this, you did your job, go back to work. These guys were taken and all standing around, and he goes, they're twins. He said this to another guy. He says, they're all twins. Why is that? Odd, right? Just to say the least. It's very odd. Well, it gets weirder. One day when he's topside and he's on the base, right? So this guy that I was talking to told me that this man he worked with told him this. He said one day when he was topside and he was on the base, he sees a group, like almost an entire unit, like jog by, and they were all identical. The entire unit was all white males, and they were all the same height, same size, same everything. Some of them had glasses, like goggles, and some of them didn't. That was the only difference. And the hair was either shaved or it was high and tight. The two haircuts you can have in the military. Kind of weird. And he's like, holy crap. Now, he was in an area that was designated for just, anybody couldn't go there. When he went back to the barracks of that area, he was told, what did you see? What do you mean? What did you see? A higher up told him this. Well, this guy that was questioning him was like an E6. He goes, at that time, I was an E5. And I told the guy, I said, nothing unusual. And he's like, this guy's acting like he wants to pull rank on me. He said, because whatever you saw, don't read into it. Now, what does that mean? He can interpret it many ways. I think what it means is, let's not talk about it. Mm-hmm. That's how I would take it. I'd be like, well, I guess they're not wanting me to speak on these things. Right? A short time later, that guy was shipped off to Iraq, where he never came back. At least as far as this guy knows. This guy eventually went to another large army base, and I say army base because that's what it was. And he said, man, you wouldn't believe what ended up happening. Because I got recruited to go into this program. He's like, and it was just to do basically, guard duty. You do some training, they pay you a little more, and they give you a better clearance and blah, blah, blah. He goes, and they gave us apartments, like you could stay in an apartment. He said the only thing was, and it was free rent, he said that the apartment was underground. When he told me that, I was like, what? He said, yes, they have an entire city under there. The base itself is about the size of it's just like a self-contained city. It's a humongous place. I've been there. And he says he goes down, and the base is massive. Anyway, he's like, but what's underneath it is even bigger. Right? When he goes down into this base, he says, dude, that's where we slept. I said, how far down? He's like, Chuck, 2 or 3 miles at least. You can drive down in there from this one entrance. He's like, they have MPs at the front, and it's like a hole going down into like a little mountain. These guys will check your credentials. He said, I noticed one white guy, one black guy. He goes, I went down into the, and he goes, I would see those same 2 guys over and over again. I'm like, the same guys? He goes, no, people that look like them. He said they would even see the same guys, but in different ages. Like you would see one that looked like he was 30, one that looked like he was 20, one that looked like he was 40. And they would have no insignias, nothing, but they would have a rank. But just black uniforms with no insignias. Nothing to say who you are or what you are. It's very much like Area 51. Have you seen the videos where those guys come up in the black SUVs and they have the black uniforms? There's no insignias on these guys. Kind of spooky. Some people have even said that they'll look identical. I don't think that they're going out and picking twins and triplets, quadruplets, or sextuplets. I don't think that's what's happening. And I think you'd be really stupid to believe that. So, as crazy as all this sounds, he never saw any vampires, werewolves, or Bigfoot. This first guy. He saw one on camera. And the guy that he was working with at the time says, look, if you think that's weird, this was in Kentucky. He says, there's stuff out here that's way worse than that. He witnessed what he believed to be the cloning, right? That has to be what that is. Signed a bunch of paperwork, a bunch of crap, whatever, and eventually was released and was debriefed and told, hey, you're never to talk about this, blah, blah, blah. So he goes by an alias. So what? The next thing, I get a call from a guy. I said, go ahead and let him call me. Call me on Facebook Messenger. When I tried getting in touch with the guy a couple days later, that Messenger account was gone. Then we had another one come up, another Messenger account. Same guy, different account. It was the same guy's voice, I could tell. This guy's name is Denny. And he never told me whether that was an alien. I don't know what that is. He said I could use his first name, Denny. Short for Dennis. I don't know. I have no idea. I didn't question it. Thought it best to not pry too much into their lives. Probably for good reasons. And I would do the same for you guys. If you say that, I'm not going to give away your name or information, whatever. A lot of people are worried about that. I noticed that. Look, if you want to come on and talk and tell what you know, that's fine. But even then, I would suggest you probably using a different name. We've seen what a mess this community can be. So if you want one shred of peace or ounce of anonymity, you got to do what you got to do. I get it. So it's just a good practice. And don't even give the names of places if you can help it. Just do the best you can. You can't always be vague. You got to say, hey, this is in this general area, whatever. I get it. But if you want to keep your place and your name, be careful, because you'll go on to people's shows and they won't encourage you to do that. They'll encourage you to say exactly your name, you play everything, because it gives credibility. I understand that, but it also could put you in danger because you don't know who's listening or who's going to listen. So, well, Matthew says, this after months of listening, it's the first time I've caught y'all live. Well, welcome, man. Welcome. So, the crazy thing about this is that when this guy started talking to me, it's two different people, I could tell. There was no... He says, look, man, he goes, our military is involved in cloning. I said, that's what your friend was talking about. He goes, but you don't understand. He goes, they've perfected it, and it's not our military. It's a shadow arm that the real military really barely even knows. He's like, there's the government, there's a shadow government. There's a military and a shadow military. The shadow military is also international. It doesn't have an allegiance to a country. That's why they don't wear an American flag. This guy was sent to two different countries working under the same programs. He's like, I saw black guys, several of them, they all looked identical. Same height, same build, same everything, identical. He says, I saw Asians, Hispanics, whites, whatever. All of these people They all looked the same. There were 3 different types of white guys, 3 different types of black guys, Hispanic, Asian, whatnot. He said there were like 3, like this type, and then there was this type, and there was this type, but they were all the same height, all of them, every one of them. I said, how tall? He said about 6'1", a little over 6 foot. They all were muscular, but not overly muscular, but well defined. None of them an ounce of fat on them. They all had the same ability. They could run fast. They could do everything better than everybody else. He says you get used to it. You're around them. They don't talk much. He's like, but sometimes you'll have a conversation with them. He got to know one who eventually was dismissed and never seen again because he was insubordinate. I think what happened with this one was he became more self-aware and wanted more than just being a clone. That's my opinion. Why? And I'll say what I think is why he was doing that. I think what it was this guy became cognizant of this is my life and I don't like it. Stop for a minute and think about the ethical, moral conundrum there. You have to have a soul. These aren't soulless beings. 93, where do you buy your jewelry? Dude, don't. Let's stay on point, man. If you want to be in the chat, talk about what's going on in the chat. I buy it at the Pulga. How about that? The flea market, bro. Walmart. So here's what I'm going to tell you. Whenever these guys run into these beings, he goes, I saw them on 2 different bases. Long time I was only on those 2 bases, and later I was on another base, sent overseas. The first base we went to for about a week was just non-eventful. He's like, and then we went, and it was in Kuwait. He's like, and then we went down. That particular base, he said, was sort of outlying a larger base. He said, when I ended up going down into this other base, that's where the real action was. He said, I ran into the same thing. There were these Arab-looking guys. They all looked the same. There were these black guys, all looked the same. White guys, all looked the same. He said there were 3 types, right, of these white guys. He said one of them had green eyes, reddish brown hair. Another one just had dark hair and dark eyes. Another one had blue eyes and dark hair. They all had different colored eyes. They were like different types. But there was a whole lineage of them, like a whole. He used the word lineage. I don't think that's. I'm not correcting his words or whatever, but I'm saying that's not really. It's. I think what he meant was there's a whole line of them. Like it's a model. And when you think about this, think about the ethics of it. Can you imagine being a clone? I don't know if they. All right, 93. That's cool. I'm sorry. I'm just kind of on the edge here, man. If you're not trying to troll me or be whatever, because we get trolled all the time. Here's the thing. If you're so inclined to believe these people's story, and I'm not telling you need to. Thank you for that donation, Abe. We appreciate that. You don't got to do that, Abe. You've done enough as a friend. But you got to wonder, what is going on there? You have 2 different guys that got in touch with us. Now, if they were making this up, they put a lot of work and effort into this. You know, this is, they wasted a lot of time. I mean, unless you're a retiree and you just enjoy making up stories, okay, which I don't know if you, it's, you know, it's very, be a lot of energy. You'd be wasting a lot of energy just to fool a show host, okay? And like I said, I can't tell you whether I believe this 100%. This is, I think it's true. I think there's most of this is probably correct. Some of what they say, I think maybe explained. You can maybe explain some of it. Like maybe they were Like there's a couple things that I'm not even going to talk about because I think that they were reading into it a little more.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like one of them, like, okay, he said that he was followed. I'll just tell you this for years afterwards. And then they let him off the hook. And his excuses, the way he said that he was being followed, I don't think that's the case. But I don't know. All I know is what you told me. That's all I know. Now there could have been more that you left out. People do that, and then they're like, "Well, you don't believe me," and I'm like, "Well," then they'll go, "Well, what about this?" And they'll say a whole nother thing that's a piece of the puzzle. You didn't give me that earlier. Based on what you said, this was Simon. I said, "Dude, I have a hard time buying that they were following you, only because why would they follow you for several years? Because most of what you're going to tell people, nobody's going to believe it anyway. They depend on that,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, who the hell is going to believe it? Okay, I mean, not Simon, Denny. So he said they followed him for several years, and then they just stopped. Well, if they were going to go through all that trouble, they would just do something else. I don't think they're going to follow you around for that long. My opinion, and I think sometimes when people are paranoid, doesn't mean it's not happening, but it could mean that you're just paranoid, honestly. And now I'm going to say this. I'll give you this. You have a reason to be paranoid, right? But you can be too paranoid and you can end up like falling into this. I don't want to sound offensive, but into this, you kind of trick yourself into thinking that there's all this, while everything's happening around me, it's
Yeah.
And a lot of what he said, I think because there is rational explanations for, I'd put a percentage on 80%. Now there were a couple things that were kind of weird. That was weird. What happened to you and your wife at the grocery store? That was a story I'm not even going to get into, but there were some weird things, which led me to believe that maybe at the beginning they were just to see what you were going to do and say. But in the end, I think they just kind of leave you alone because they don't believe that anybody's going to believe you. Now, Simon didn't have that problem. They let him go, and that was it. Because he didn't really see a whole lot. He saw what I believe was a cloning program. He can go out there and say it all day long, and all they're going to do is deny it and go, "Oh, that's crazy. These people are claiming all this." My problem is this. Why are so many people claiming this? If you had one or two people that said, "Hey, there's a fire over there," you're kind of like, "Oh, really? I don't see any smoke." But then another person and another person, then you're going to get in your car and you're going to go look, right? Let's go check it out. There's something's going on over there across the mountain. Let's go. But, until then, it's just a rumor. When it starts to go into the realm of no longer fantasy, but probable, it's probably, then you're looking at it. And that's what's happening now. You're starting to hear people talk about the clone thing pretty regularly. They've talked about it in Congress. But what this guy's claiming, what Denny is claiming he saw, goes beyond just the like he saw the same thing that Simon did, the sets of these people that all look the same. And one of them he made friends with. And then this person supposedly went AWOL. We don't know. Maybe he escaped. How long they live, we don't know. How long it takes them to mature, we don't know. We don't know. Because these guys that seen it don't even know. And most of the people they encounter, when they tell them, they don't believe them anyway. Just don't believe them. Why? It just sounds far-fetched, right? Well, it gets even more far-fetched, especially when someone tells you not only are they cloning people, they're cloning creatures, beings, monsters. What constitutes a monster? When you say, "I saw a monster," let's be specific. What did you see? Did you see a Wendigo? A Gugwi? A Bigfoot? A Dogman? A Mothman? A Lechusa? A reptilian of some kind? Are those monsters, right? Those are monsters, right? Is that what we call a monster? Did you see a werewolf or a vampire? What do they look like? He says, nobody ever told me this is a vampire. Except for a now AWOL clone. He said, what is your job? He was in the same barracks with them. They were on one side, they were on the other. They weren't supposed to intermingle. He's like, but this guy, when he was on patrol, he says, I caught one of them sneaking out. You could tell because he was walking around in white shorts, and you could see it in the dark because they make them wear white. But he didn't have a shirt on. He was an African-American looking guy. And he told him, he says, where are you going? He says, oh, I'm going for a walk. He says, you know, you're not supposed to leave your barracks. And they even called it the clone barracks. They were like, that's where the clones are. That's, you know. He's like, we were separated by about 50 yards. Not quite, a little less than 50 yards. He said, but all of our barracks were kind of in a U, right? He said, and then 50 yards away was their barracks, kind of tucked back by the woods. And everybody was like, hey, that's the clone barracks. They only came out when we weren't out. He's like, and when we went inside, when we were done with everything we had to do, we had to close they didn't, but somebody came in and closed their blinds, their curtains. They had curtains that closed everything. He's like, we had a basketball court in there. We had ping pong. We had video games. We didn't get access to TV, but he goes, we could watch limited amounts of YouTube and limited amounts of other channels and stuff, but it was all dated stuff and it was all pick through. You couldn't, like, they were censoring everything.
Mm-hmm.
Needless to say, they didn't have Rumble. It's a very good point, Cowboy. Looking at some of these comments here.
I'm curious as to if these clones have souls, then where do these souls come from?
Same place ours do.
But what is the like okay, so whenever we're born, like a normal human being is born, I mean, do we choose before we're born, choose to be born into this?
See, that's
vessel?
something that I can't 100% answer, but I can tell you what I've been told and what my research tells me is yes.
Uh-huh.
But these beings probably don't have a choice.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. Because if that's the case, then does that mean that they don't have a choice? In which case,
have you heard of the soul towers?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, these are supposedly soul catchers. Like when you pass, you have an energy. Now, if everything, like Nelly's always saying, frequency, everything is a frequency. Everything is a type of, energy. Let me see. So, yes, Maddie, it is a good way to support the show is through the Patreon. Thank you for your patronage. So, we as people, we're born, we live, we die. Everything has to have a soul. A soul is that spark. Okay, I've said this before. It's a spark, breath, and life from God. And what it does is that it breathes life into what would otherwise be a lifeless mass. A human body and an animal body is just a complex grouping of different organisms that all came together to be one.
Yeah.
Bunch of cells that agreed to, hey, let's all work together.
It's like a man of war.
Man of war, yeah. Portuguese man of war is a very good example. But we're very complex. One of the things that I can tell you 100% that I believe, these beings, they're not all demons. I don't think that. I think some are demonic. But I think the average human body is not really very comfortable for a demon to inhabit. There has to be some sort of melding that takes place. And to facilitate that, there has to be some kind of opening, spiritual opening that's always there within this clone. I think why they try so hard to snatch up all the giants in their DNA.
Mhm.
I don't want to veer off too far, but this is true. I want to tell you this. They try to get these giants' DNA whenever they are found, in particular in the deserts of the Southwest, is where they're found quite a bit. I want to say that, folks. Let's because there's so much to take in. I don't want to get too far off. Why do you think the deserts of the Southwest hold so much of this information in the form of skeletal remains? What would be your guess, you, Anthony?
Well, was that region that wasn't always desert, was it?
No,
Was it an inland ocean at one time, or was it like a lush
that's
green
all of this
area?
area was, but
Mhm.
that goes way back. What I'm talking about is let's say 250,000 years ago,
Mhm.
there was a war, one of the wars, and these beings they attacked one another. And they still to this day, like I said, there's an entire region in the Indus Valley in between Pakistan and India where they find glass, like an entire sea of glass
Yeah,
that was once grass.
and the only thing that could turn it is a nuclear explosion.
Mhm. I think that they find these beings because this is where they lived at one time, and the desert was created instantaneously.
Mhm.
We know that years ago, hundreds of thousands of years ago, and then it's cyclical and it goes on and it ebbs and flows. But I would say 250,000 years ago until about 100,000 years ago, there was a thriving, lush jungle there at one time. And then, boom, there was a war. And all of their temples and all of their crap was just obliterated in different spots. And then we're left with the skeletal remains. The fallout must have been horrible, and their descendants probably buried them and themselves mutated. I mean, it's hard to even wrap your mind around or comprehend.
Mhm.
It's not a simple answer, right? But the answer is there, buried within their skeletal remains. Every time they're found, this one of the, I'd say, offenders is the Smithsonian. They just swoop in and they're
Mhm.
gone. They take them. They do it in every country, in China, in India, the Baltics, Bulgaria. Look up Bulgaria and Roswell. And then we start over. Adam was the first man, right, of this era. But we don't want to get too far into the ancient aliens. People always get offended when you start talking about the truth. People don't want to hear it. They get all mad and they can't. Baby steps. When we go too far out into the deep. So what happens with these people that see these beings, these clones? I think they'll let you go up to a degree unless people start believing you. Then that becomes a problem because you're free to say what you want until it's too true.
Yeah.
Then you start getting threats. Then you start having all these people attack you you've never even heard of. You don't know who they are, and you don't know why they're attacking you. Hold on one second. Need some moderators in here. There's a couple. Yeah, the Vedas do speak of this. So you have these people who claim that they're seeing these things. One of the things that this guy told me he saw wasn't just a cloning program based on human DNA. Through the help of this individual that he met one night when he was sneaking out, and he goes, this guy was probably not just going for a walk, he was probably going AWOL at that time, but he thought better of it. He goes, and the guard duties rotated, right? He's like, imagine being outdoors where there's grass and there's a sky, but the sun is always out, but it looks dim. That's where he was at. The inner earth. He said, and this guy, I think he wanted more. He goes, he asked me about the surface. And he asked him, he says, what is it like up there? Is it like this? He said, yes, it is, except the sun goes down and it's all dark. And then later the sun comes back up. And he was confused by that. He had never seen it. Did not know what daylight and night were, like two different things.
That's actually sad.
Had never lived up on the surface. So, you know, this guy had this want to know. They were also sterile, those beings. He didn't know if they were, what would the word be called, eunuchs. He didn't know one way or the other. He never asked, but he knew they couldn't have children. He knew that. They were born sterile. Yes, there were female clones too. That doesn't even have to do with this. There is a whole nother show we could do about that. These were males, and they were used predominantly as guards. He also witnessed these people working out, but they were on a very strict diet and a strict exercise regimen. The average soldier that could bench about 500 pounds. He said it was unbelievable. He said nobody in my barracks could go above 350. These guys were compact, just very healthy, benching at least 500 pounds. Some of them were a little stronger. There was one in particular, they called him Apex. That was the nickname they gave him. And he happened to be a little bit taller and a little bit bigger and a little bit stronger than the rest. Those are considered to be a mutation because they're supposed to be a perfect design. And he found that out because he asked this one particular that he was friends with. He said, I had guard duty once a week. He's like, every Thursday, it was my job. He goes, and this guy would go out on Thursdays. He's like, I told him, I said, don't try this shit with anybody else because they're going to get you. And he said, I'd sit there and I'd talk to him. He's like, and this guy, he liked to smoke cigarettes, which was strictly forbidden. And if they were caught with anything contraband, they would just remove them. That was it. Constantly being reminded that they could be replaced at any time because what they were was just a subhuman. And they were treated as such. They weren't treated as people. So he asked this guy, he says, what was your childhood like? And he told him, he says, when we were children, we were just being taught. We had class constantly. We had school. That's all we did. We just learned. And he said, were you taught history? He goes, history? Like he didn't understand what that was. He said, history, like, you know, what's it like? Didn't even know what the inside of his barracks looked like. They didn't have television as we know it. They had a screen that would come on and somebody would talk to them, giving them commands. He says, do you have television? He says, you mean the screen? Take that in for a minute. Imagine that. Can you imagine the life? What kind of life is that? He said, what is your main objective? Like, what is your primary function? Because that's what they called it. Primary function was the recovery, retrieval, and destruction of rogue assets. That was his unit's job. So Denny asked him, he says, what is an asset? And he's like, you don't know what the assets are? And he says, no, I don't. He said, they're clones like us, but they're different. They come from a different parentage, as he called it. And he's like, what the hell is that? Denny, having a Christian background and since got out and gave his life to Christ and started looking through all this stuff from a more Christian lens, he's like, dude, these people doing this are evil. Because at the time I thought it was kind of jacked up, but he's like, I didn't really understand the moral conundrum started weighing heavy on my mind. He said, what are the assets? And he began to describe to him, there were some that could fly. There were some that were ground-based, that could run really fast. There were some that were ape-like, that would jump from tree to tree. They could camouflage themselves. They were hard to spot sometimes. He's like, and then there were others. And he goes, what do you mean others? He's like, I don't know, like there are some that live on blood. He said listen to this. He said these particular assets were, he goes, you don't have them on the top side? He said, no, because he didn't know at the time. And this guy tells him, sure you do. You had to have seen them. They're up there. He's like, some of them were caught up there. And then some of them are native to this place. This dude's blown away. He said, what do these ground assets look like? Let's start there, right? And he says, they look like wolves. He said, I know what a wolf is. And, they showed him pictures. This is what you're looking for. He's like, can you draw? And this guy goes, you mean like make pictures? And he says, yeah. He says, yeah, we can all draw. They all have this really strong mind. He brings him a notepad, a blank notepad, and he tells him, draw an asset for me. He draws this winged demon-looking thing and says, this is one of the ones that drinks blood. Then he draws this wolf-headed being and says, this one here, this one here, this one will tear you apart. And there were others too. One that looked kind of like a pale crawler. This one swings from trees to trees like a white reptilian monkey is the way he described it. Some of them, he said, were almost like spirits. They could go through walls. They could do all this stuff. They could camouflage themselves. Sounds familiar, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I don't think that everything that people witness is an asset. What I think they're doing, and this is the absolute truth of what I believe, I think that what they're doing is taking these beings that already exist, that are demonic or whatever, Nephilim, I don't know what you want to call it, whatever you want to call them, and they're trying to replicate them, genetically modifying them to a degree, but it's a replication process. Mm-hmm. What do you think?
I don't see why that wouldn't be the case.
Yeah, Rhonda says, what a mess. Exactly. What a mess. Cielo Azul says, two realities. Yes, two realities. But if you've noticed what's going on in the world, there are factions upon factions. Let me give you an example. We're going to veer off for just a minute. We're going to come right back to this. But let me give you an example. You have anti-Chinese protests by Chinese. You have anti-Israel protests by Jewish people. No, it's true. You have anti this and pro that, and I'm down with this, but not that. I want this, I want that. You have a million different factions of a million different causes, and they're all colliding one by one, just happening to be whatever. Have you ever seen so much damn chaos in your life? The stock market's up, the stock market's down. And you're going to get mugged if you go downtown. That's Hank Williams Jr.
Yeah.
I just thought about that. But what XRP is going to be the new biggest. XRP is going to go down. AI is the next big. Oh, there's an AI bubble. They can't even make up their mind what I am. He's a communist. He's a Nazi. He's a whatever. Whatever is bad, that's him. He thinks he's the bad guy. Whatever. Whatever you think of your flavor of evil, he's that. He's on the left. He's on the right. He's in the middle. Whatever it is. You're a Protestant that doesn't like Catholics. He's a Catholic. He's a Catholic. He's a Jesuit. They said that about him. I'm a Jesuit. Oh, you're a Catholic, whatever. He's an evil Protestant. Whatever they can think of that's bad, that's he's the bad guy. That's what they do. They villainize people, and whoever comes out with something, they start with the verbal diarrhea so they can shut them down. But here at PRT, we're just about the truth. Whether that leads us to some underground facility or some crazy experience that somebody had while they were camping in the Sierra Nevadas, I don't know. It just depends on what happens. It could go to the ruins in Cambodia. We've been there on the show, haven't we? And we're going to go to the ruins in south of Mexico. We're going to talk about Camazotz and this old Meccan vampire. We got a lot to talk about, folks. Reptilians, Dogman with webbed feet. What do you think these things? Do you think that they all are evolved, or do you think that they were genetically modified, or what about both? What if everything is correct? What if it's all of the above? Lawrence says, I would say the real enemy is ignorance because knowing is half the battle. Yes. Here's another magic question there, Wendy. There you go. Wolf, are alien races involved in the DNA manipulation to create these assets? Yes and no. I think we were given a higher level of intel from them that has been used to deadly effect. And then we started doing it on our own. Imagine taking a chimp and making it a little more human to where he can talk and he's all sophisticated and he smokes a bubble pipe. That's
Caesar.
just my little extra.
From Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, Caesar, but, a little more cuddly. I want him to be nicer. I don't want him to eat my nose and my genitalia and my fingers.
Yeah.
And he's like, look at me. Look at me. I'm the master now. You're the circus chimp. I'm super smart. And now I shall set about. He's like, pouring the. Now I'm going to do genetic experiments and create some really fantastical shit. Pay attention, human. You might learn something. You're like, I taught him all this. He turns around. Once I was but the monkey. Now I am the master. That's what happened. Look at us now. I'm not saying we're monkeys or we were coming from monkeys, but they gave us the technology and now we're doing all kinds of stuff. Right?
Mm-hmm.
What were you going to say? I'm sorry.
Oh no, I'm just gonna make a joke. Like he's in a lab coat with the goggles and everything, doing like these sophisticated experiments, and you look over and like he's like pooping on the floor while he's doing it, not even acknowledging it. But it's like that's us too. Like metaphorically, that's us.
Mm-hmm.
Like our technological advancement over the past 200 years has accelerated to an unnatural degree. At no point in known human history has it accelerated that much, and it's something that's never like addressed in any history class in any school teaching. Nothing like why is it that when you compare technological advancements from any point in history before like 1800, you can take any 200-year time span, and the advancement is nowhere near as quick as it is from the 1800s to now.
Yeah.
It's like we're that chimp being given this technology or this knowledge that we really don't know how to use, and that's why a lot of it's been weaponized and just like it's not used for good, really.
Yeah. Somebody made the comment on there, racist. It's like, what are you talking about? Why has everything got to be racist? Common's gone, but it's whatever, dude. It's so ridiculous. There's nothing to do with racism at all. None whatsoever. That's another thing. They want to hang that on me. You're racist. You're sexist. You're the ist. You're all of the ist. You're a satanicist. You're a communist. You're a whatever they could think of.
Two shadows maybe identify as a monkey.
They've called me a Zionist, and then they've said I'm anti-Semitic. I had somebody that ranted and raved on this one group that they're in, and they said that they talked about me being anti-Semitic for half of the rant was a whole paragraph, and then the next paragraph they said I'm a Zionist. They literally did that, and I said, "Wow." How about I'm a truther? How about a realist? The one ist they don't call me is a realist. Every time I come out here and I put myself out here and I talk about this stuff, I'm putting myself out here for people to call me racist, anti-Semitic, sexist. Every single word that they can come up with and think about. And I don't think any of this fits. Okay. I don't look at myself as that. Now, there are people who really are that way, and they'll be in absolute denial of what the hell they are. I'm not that guy. I talk to all kinds of people. Wherever the truth takes me when it comes to this stuff. The Leviathan. And that is some of the most ridiculousness I've ever heard in my life. I showed everybody what that was. He melted it down. Like, okay. How about I'm just a normal guy who wants answers? How about I'm just like you? Somebody's got to be up here and be the MC and say, hey, this is what we got to do. You got a bunch of cowards who lurk around in the shadows looking for anything they can. Why don't you just stop and listen? Maybe you'll learn something. Oh, thank you for that, Leonard. I appreciate you defending me. True Shadow says, Wolf, you give me food for thought and it's greatly appreciated. Yep. Barry says, truth can be terrifying. Jordan, absolutely. Fiat globalism. Joanne says, you tell us the truth, Josh. I try to. I can't tell you that everything that's been said is true because I don't know. I don't know. What people tell you is one thing. I mean, can they prove it? No. But I mean, you can listen and kind of go, well, it makes sense. I can bring it on and let you guys decide what you want to believe. But I have no dog in that fight to make you believe. What does it benefit me whether or not they're super soldiers or not? It doesn't. And I have a million other people's encounters that we can tell. I have a million other people we could bring on the show and let them talk about all this. What's the difference? This isn't, we're going to have a show on Friday. We're going to have another show on Sunday and so on and so forth. What does it matter? There's a million subjects out there involving all of this. This is just one of them. But this is a piece of the puzzle that needs to be put on it needs to be put up there, man. One of the things I questioned this guy too, and I said, what did he say about these assets? Were there some that were worse than others? Were they more violent, more aggressive? And he's like, he didn't really compare, but he did say that these assets had killed some of his brothers being the other clones. They had fallen victim to them. They had seen it happen. And as strong and as powerful as they were, they by themselves, one-on-one, had no chance against one of these assets. Now, these assets were grown in the lab too. But there was one kind of asset that he said was very prized, very important, and that was the seed. That was when my ears perked up. I was like, the seed? Yes, there was a seed asset. That is an asset that fathers the other assets. They don't breed them so much as they take the DNA and they grow them. And someone's question from earlier, was it originally from an alien technology? Yes, I believe it was. Did Denny know this? No, he did not. I told him that. And I said, look, I'm not going to try and lead you to say something that you're not comfortable with or you don't think is true. But I believe that this technology came from alien technology. And he thought about it for a minute. He said, yeah, probably. Because one of the places that this guy worked, and his brother was in the military too, but not in the way he was. His brother got him the job doing what he was doing because his brother was a scientist who worked on back engineering programs. He said, and even though my brother really never talked, he goes, we'd see each other Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter. He's like, birthdays, he goes, we lived about an hour and a half apart. We very much had our own lives. He's like, but, at one point we were living close to each other when we both retired and got out of the whole whatever. He goes, my brother is not to ever talk about what we saw. He's like, they don't know what I learned. He's like, and I've been keeping this to myself for a long time. He's like, and my friend Simon convinced me to talk about it. And so he said, just call me Denny. That's what everybody calls me. I said, okay, fine. One of the things that he said, he goes, my brother was working on this program. He's like, and the only thing he ever told me, he goes, we got drunk together while we were fishing. He's like, and he told me that they were back engineering craft. He's like, I took that also to think, hey, they're probably back engineering the genetic tampering too. I mean, they're they probably learned it from these entities.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't you say so, folks? I mean, the seed, the fact that they called it that and the clone knew to call it that. So they catch one of these beings and then they clone it. It's pretty crazy stuff. When he was telling me this, he was sort of taken aback by my lack of like going, ooh, wow. Then he asked me, he's like, do you not believe what I'm saying? I said, no, that's not it at all. I've heard this before. It's still, when you hear it, no matter how many times, you don't get used to it, but you're kind of like, okay, I've heard this before. My colleagues have been told this. I've heard people tell me, I was doing a thing about MK Ultra, and my person that I was co-authoring with disappeared to another country. Our main witness, who was cross-examined by two other people that I believe and that are pretty trustworthy in this field, they believed him, or it was two of them, her and him. The female got cold feet. That was very telling because that was kind of our star witness to this. Yeah. And I believe that something happened to her. Not they didn't do anything, but I think that they probably told her, hey, don't do this. And that's all it took. Then she was like, okay. So we were told that, you want to join us? We were told that, she was not wanting to talk about it in the book. So we have a book that's written that's never been published. True. MK Ultra. When you talk to people and they tell you, hey, this has happened to me, this, and this, when it's intense when you're interviewing people and and then it crushes you on you whenever they can't follow through. And knowing what you know and what you've heard, and you can't really say it because you got nobody backing you up. Because they don't want it going into a book. Because this particular person said, if you write all that, they're going to know it was me. So do you write this really epic book and sell a bunch of copies of it and make money? Or do you do the ethical thing and you just shelve it because that person's not ready to come out about it? So I did the right thing. Would have been good. Not good in a way that what happened to these people was good, but it needs to be exposed. But it's probably not going to see the light of day now. My eyes are burning like crazy. I don't know why they're burning. Are your eyes burning? No, I'm all right. But when you take into account what this man told me and what I've heard before from other people who I will honestly say we goofed up way back. And Anthony, you know this. We had people telling us this kind of stuff in the early days.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know.
Yeah.
We were all like, what?
We?
It sounded, not you, but well, me, Anthony, Tony, and Armando. Okay. We were like, I wouldn't say 3 blind mice, 4 blind mice. We didn't know what the hell. And there were people that were shills in this community going back to that point. And they were like, oh, don't, that person's lying. They dropped that honey in your ear so you wouldn't deal with them. I could pinpoint these people too. They're still around doing what they do. And we figured it out a lot who they are. A lot of them. They're shills, folks. 100% they have to be getting paid by somebody to do that much work to rail against the information. Under the guise of, and everything's motivated by money. And these people were not getting paid that I know of. But under the guise of like, well, I want to make sure everybody's doing what they're supposed to be doing correctly. We're just telling you this about them because we don't want you to end up looking bad. You don't care about anybody. All of a sudden you give a shit what happens to me. You ate your mom for breakfast. You don't care. Stop it, you sociopath. And then you start to figure out like, yeah, that person was telling me this and that back in the day. Because that's the danger in this. That's what's going on. You got people who I believe are 100% absolutely believe. My hand to the Bible, I believe this. I believe it. And even if I think that the Old Testament is not 100%, the way that a lot of people believe, I still believe in the New Testament 100%. And I'm not going to put my hand on the word of Christ and say this, but I will say this. If you ask me 100%, what do you believe? I will tell you there are shills in this community that their job is to deceive you. Their job is to stop people like us from getting the information to you. And they'll do it any way they can.
Throw out red herrings left and right.
Yep. Go after witnesses, make their lives hell, make their lives difficult, get them shadow banned wherever they can. And when you fight back, then they turn it around on you. You're the bad guy. starting these little cliques that just attack. And it doesn't take all of them to be that. It takes one or two of these shitheads to do that. And then they replicate and they get a bunch of other people to do it. And they're telling them different reasons, whatever it is. He doesn't believe like we do. So we need to go after him. This is what they do. And they've done this. They've disparaged our witnesses. They've gone after people. They've scared people. They've cajoled people. Discredited people. And so I'm going to tell you, folks, if you ever get into doing this, do what is right. Do the moral thing. Do what is right. Tell the truth. And don't let these people scare you, and get it out there that these people are doing this. Because if something happens to you, they're going to have to do it in front of God and the whole world. Doesn't mean they won't do it. But at least the world sees it. They know the crime that was committed. I am not a suicidal person. So if you ever hear that I did that, folks, something was going on. That's not, the things that they try to mess with you, man. I'm telling you. Make you feel like you're going crazy. And that's what happened to some of our witnesses. I even wonder about, somebody that I was working with. I mean, like, what happened? What really happened? Been a few people like that. They just all of a sudden, you know what? I changed my mind. I'm moving away. I'm going to Antarctica. Really? We were in well, yeah, because there's some stuff in Kool-Aid with the other friend. Wow. Good reasons. And then, people tell you some crazy stuff. And then your job is to sit there and decipher it all and decide, hey, so the best thing you can do is just tell the whole story. If people believe it, they believe it. They don't, you move on. I don't think that this explains the Dogman phenomenon 100%. What I do think, though, is that it gives us a clearer picture into what they're doing with these creatures. When somebody finds a giant, they swoop in and it's gone. A creature like this is probably a lot more apt to be controlled or to go along with the awfulness. One of the things that Denny claims too, he says every third clone is evil. What do you mean? Well, he says, in my opinion, he goes, they're evil. About 1 in 3. They make 2 with normal whatever, and then a third one is like a sociopath. And I said, that is almost like a perfect possession. Right?
Is that like on purpose or like a defect?
I think it's on purpose. Or it could be a defect or both.
It was a defect at first, and then they found a
They
way to
just
use
let
it.
it go. Because if you have 2 that are affected by some sort of moral conundrum, the third one's going to be like, I don't give a crap. Our objective is blah, 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 and I'm going to do it robotically, methodically, without any feeling, without a second thought. So that to me is very telling. And when he said that, I thought about it. I was like, oh, it makes sense. Because when he first said it, he was like, they're evil. I'm like, I don't know. Somebody just says that. You're like, well, what is the grounds for that? Because at first you don't really click in what it is. And then I'm like, well, why? What is, he's like, well, think about it. And I said, what made you come to this conclusion, having only talked to one of them? He said, I didn't just talk to one of them. I met a couple others. I said, was one of them like that? He goes, no. They confirmed it, though. Every third one or so was like a snitch. Here's the defect, though. Those particular ones, there were only certain ones in each little cohort group. They had them in groups of 6. 2 out of the 6 were the only ones allowed to stand guard duty. How do you get to that point where you have the rank? The one that was out walking around was one of those guys. I said, wait a minute. If this guy is one of those evil guys, he's one of those bad guys, how could you trust the guy? He says, because he told me how he did it. He pretended to be like the others that were like that. Gung-ho, real, just, kill, destroy, worshiping death and destruction. But that's not who he was. He managed to pass the tests, but his heart really wasn't in it. You ever notice that? There's in all these groups. There's really different kinds. There's those the manipulative masterminds that are behind all the bullshit, and then you have that second tier that are sucking up to them to be, in their graces and be a part. And yeah. Then you have a third tier that are just kind of there going like, well, I'm going with the flow. Then you have a fourth. And they're like, I don't know if I'm in the right room.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm a Decepticon, but
There's that conflict in them.
I'm just going to go along with this and because I don't have a choice right now. The third tier, they're kind of the same way, except they're going along with it to see what they can get out of it, what they will benefit them personally. The fourth tier is kind of swept up in it, probably by friends or family. They're not really what that is. They're wearing the uniform, but they would just as soon take it off and run for the hills if they could. But out of fear or of either ridicule or ostracization, being ostracized, let's put it that way, they keep going along with it. I've been in conflicts with people outside of this bullshit. And I've seen those kind of people, and they'll come to you and be like, look, man, I don't want to be involved in this shit. These people are crazy. And they try to, they're not even really asking for any kind of deal from you. They just want you to know that they don't even know how or why they got into it. Good point by my brother there. It's just one of those things, and it's sad and it's tragic, and you see it and you're like, I wish things weren't this way. And they're like, me too. And they're always afraid too of somebody else in that group. Not just the leaders, but the second tier, which is the enforcers. See, when you've dealt with these kind of maniacs as long as we have, it's like you already know who's who. You can tell. And they think they're tricking people. Let's make different personalities. It's still the same stuff. You're saying the exact same thing. And that's how these organizations were able to, that's how communism worked. You tell on your neighbor.
Mm-hmm.
You're out there watching your neighbor. He's mowing his grass on a Tuesday. The great Stalin said not to mow your grass on a Tuesday. In fact, you shouldn't even have a mower. What's next? Food. That's what they were doing. These clones, they were basically like telling on one another. You spout off the words. Every day they had to repeat these mantras. They didn't tell me what they were. Maybe you didn't ask. But it's like a self-brainwashing thing. They begin to police one another. That's what they do. And then when they go to look for these assets, if one of them gets taken out or destroyed, one of the people, they just get a new one that gets plugged in. So-and-so's gone. I'm so-and-so. They don't have names. They had numbers. Right? When they go out and they look for these assets, these horrible beings that they look for, they go into the wild where they live. There is another area beyond the wild, which is something that nobody goes to. That's where these beings are trying to get to. They're trying to get past this perimeter. The perimeter is something that's akin to magic and technology melded together. There are geometric shapes that go around this green fence, and just beyond is where these beings are trying to get to, because there's something out there that the clones don't know that is beckoning them. And this thing is kind of like a dome. These beings can't really cross it because they're using certain geometric, whatever, to keep them encased. But they're holes. There are places where some of these upper echelon beings can get through. They can go back and forth. There's a whole nother world out there. And there's a world above them. One of the things that Denny said, he goes, when you take this elevator, if you take it up to a certain level, he goes, it's about 20 stories. Then you go to this garage and then you drive out and you're just going steadily up, kind of curving around. And then there's different forks and whatever. But he said that when you go into this elevator, he goes, you pass through this green ring. The elevator stops and then kind of goes forward, and you feel it and you see it, and it's like hot. What the hell is that? He said, I only actually saw it one time. I could feel it. He's like, but I had never seen it before. He's like, the elevator is dark. He goes, and one day I got on there. He's like, and I just left my glasses on. They have these, I had them. I put them on because, you're just seeing darkness. He's like, and then the stuff you see, he's like, you'll never forget it. I said, what do you mean? He goes, there's stuff flying around out there. Something that looked akin to a pterodactyl, like you would see, like people drawing pictures of them. He's like, I haven't seen it myself, but other people had claimed to see this flying humanoid looking thing. I told him, I said, after talking to this guy and then a couple of his friends, I was like, do you believe in these creatures? He said, I never saw them. He's like, so I don't know 100%. He goes, but I don't think these people have a reason to lie. He's like, and as far as I know, this is still going on and they're still down there. So what we have is a program dedicated toward the replication of some of the most dangerous beings on the earth.
And they think they can control them.
And they think they can control them. But let's be honest, folks. You need an army of clones to constantly go and grab them and bring them back to wherever they're at because they're constantly getting loose. And a lot of times they don't find them. So they go beyond the wall, or are they going up? And get this, the vampiric ones, even though they're clones, according to what these clones had said, these assets can blend in with human. They can actually alter their shape and they can get out. They use your eye to get clearance. That's where it's at, is in your eye. But these beings can literally replicate you. They can turn into you. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So if they're mimicking you, every strand of your DNA, Well, they're going to escape. And it's happened before because he got held for 2 hours because he had already left. And he goes, I did not leave. And when they took him in and they had somebody come and get him and take him back to the facility, they were like, oh, God, we have a problem.
Well,
This is the real one. Where is number such and such, such and such? And he's like, well, what the heck? Thank you for that donation.
You had a question.
He said, do you think the Kandahar Giant was a capture mission gone wrong? They went in light. Yeah, I do. It's now come out. It's all over the internet that there are multiple giants, people, drone operators, radio operators, seeing these red-haired giants all over Afghanistan and these werewolf-looking creatures. There's other channels talking about it. I haven't gotten to see, or I've seen the headlines. I haven't gotten to listen to a whole lot. So, if you were a person, if you were so inclined to go out looking for these things, remember, some of these things have been genetically modified to kill you. So when you're going out there, running around in the woods, you're looking for stuff, you could find it. People go missing all the time. It's bad enough that these things are naturally occurring, but then they get them, and then they turn them into something even worse. Because what I've been told is these werewolf clones, according to the clone that told Denny this, he said that when they catch these packs of them, they go out there in packs, right? He said they look identical. There's like 5 of them. They'll be identical. A batch, as they call it, will disappear. And he's like, why do they keep escaping? Oh, because something or someone is letting them out. He's like, when they disappear, a lot of times he believes that they're taking them topside and releasing them. Releasing them where? That was the question that Denny said. He says, and then thank goodness he asked this question. He says, where? Where are they releasing them? He said, well, as far as I know, they're taking them to unpopulated areas. Unpopulated areas. And Julie says national parks. Valerie says the same thing.
The thicket. This is like that. The thicket.
The big thicket, yeah, different places. Lawrence Morgan says, thank you for the live show tonight. I had a crappy day. Well, that's what we're here for. To scare the shit out of you. Make your day just that much scarier.
now it's scary and crappy.
Now you're crappy. You're like, what was that? Was that an asset? You said that guy, Gary, said that something. You don't even know the guy's name. Come on.
Whatever you do, don't open your blinds tonight, Lawrence. Definitely do not open the
I'll be right
blinds.
back, y'all.
Do not open the blinds over your kitchen sink as you're washing your dishes. I had a 6th grade. I've said this before, but like the reason that particular like scenario kind of scares me is because I had a 6th grade teacher one time who was, and this story is unrelated. Just until Wolf comes back, he's got to deal with something. But I had a 6th grade teacher one time I'll never forget. She told us a story completely out of the blue, where she was washing dishes like after sundown one night, and she said that she had opened, like, she had these curtains that were in the window above her kitchen sink. She said she opened them and she saw what she described as this pig-headed man It had like the head of like this big fat head of a hog, and it had these glowing red eyes, but it had the body of a man. And she said that window was like at least 7 foot off the ground. And she said that this was before that movie, Amityville Horror. She saw this before that movie came out, and then once that movie came out, she went to go see it, and there was a scene in there that perfectly depicted exactly what she saw. And she said she couldn't finish that movie. She couldn't watch it anymore because it just scared her that much to know that this isn't just something out of a horror movie. I saw this first, like right in my window. So I don't know. I don't know why you would tell that. Thinking back on it, I don't know why you would tell a bunch of sixth graders that you saw that. It's kind of messed up. Maybe we were acting bad that day. I don't know. I mean, I wasn't. I was always a good, quiet kid in school. I never got in trouble.
I want to move further away from the lightning doesn't hit me.
No, I actually wasn't.
No,
like,
I know.
I never got in
just
trouble.
teasing you.
I was always that kid in the back of the class that didn't talk much, and then when I finally said something, people were like, "Oh, that's what you sound like? Oh, never heard you speak before."
Or they didn't even notice you were there half the time.
No, I was very much off of people's radar. Thank you for that, Franco, for your $5 super chat.
No, I was going to ask you a question about that. The clones and stuff. Do you think that they, when they made them, that they removed like certain traits of humanity, and sometimes they didn't remove it all, and that's why some of them wake up like that?
Yeah, I do. I think that what they do is they try to make them less caring, less
human.
Take the inquisitiveness out, because they don't want that. They just want a slave with a gun. That's it.
It's like a one-track mind.
Yeah.
It's like that movie. I can't remember, Anthony, you're the one who told us where they had no emotion. Remember?
Equilibrium.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, where Equilibrium was. Where emotion was outlawed in that movie. It's a really good, if you haven't seen Equilibrium, go check it out. It's a really good movie, and it's but yeah, the guy who kept coming on the screen like George Orwell's 1984. That's pretty much what I envisioned in my mind's eye when you talked about like someone coming on the screen and talking to these clones and telling them what to do, what to say, what to think.
KD7 says I got booted out.
From where? Here?
From where? You're right here.
If you got booted out, we wouldn't be able to read your comment. I mean, it's right there.
Maybe it's YouTube.
I don't know. It's weird. Maybe you're from here.
Well, from her place, I guess.
Vicky says, "Where's Mushu been? He was on the show Sunday."
Oh, let's go back.
He's working tonight. He should be in the chat. I don't know.
Yeah, Christian Bale was in that movie, right?
Yeah, he was the main character.
Yeah, because something without emotion or any kind of human feelings and stuff, that would be a good soldier, because they wouldn't care.
I wonder too, actually, if these clones, like the clones that are like the same, if they have some sort of like collective consciousness, like any sort of like hive mind that they can access. Because you know how like twins will have like that kind of twin telepathy?
These particular ones, I don't think so, because the other ones would have known what they were doing, going out and talking to the human operative.
Yeah. Actually,
not that they weren't human themselves, but they're a different kind of human.
Yeah.
Stratum has a question about your vampire confessionals.
They can ask.
Yeah.
You can ask whatever. If you want to ask it on Sunday, ask it on Sunday. I don't know exactly what we're going to be doing Sunday. There's a few different things we've been talking about doing. So we'll see. I think that the clones, though, having to have them there and not only police the facility, but constantly going out for these assets. And according to them, there were others like them on the top that and their job was to catch them. And so there are others that live topside, and they live deep in these, bases, barracks, whatever. Whenever you hear about these beings, you think, well, it's some sort of naturally occurring thing, but it could be from these facilities too. This whole thing had to make me rethink what I believe.
Yeah, there's definitely got to be multiple explanations for what these things are, for what people see. They don't all just come from one place.
Sorry if your thing is buffering temporarily. It's sort of messing up over here. And we have a show on Friday too. Our guest will be Harley Owens. We were booked all the way through toward the end of March.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of people who want to come on the show. We're going to have a conversation with a guy who encountered reptilians, and that'll be on the following Friday. It's going to be interesting. Very interesting. So we got a lot of people coming on, witnesses and different, people, researchers, hosts, authors. So every Friday, folks. Right now, right here, tell me what you think in the comments. Like I said, I'm putting myself out there with this. And I haven't shied away. There have been people who've come at me from all different directions with all kinds of stuff. And people kind of dare you to say things. And we just keep going past that mark,
So you think the souls that inhabit these vessels, they come from these soul towers?
Very possible.
But
And one of these, here's something that's really weird. One of the people that I talked to had nothing to do with these two gentlemen. This is a person that claims that they were raised by the Vril.
Mm-hmm.
They were Vril. And they claim that some of their humans that are hybrids, they can walk amongst us, but they're the ones that eyes that slit up, whatever. And these particular beings are like a vampiric type of reptilian, but that their souls are typically low-ranking demons. When they have children, when they breed with humans, they have a human soul, because the human that human part of the DNA won't allow the demonic. It can, but it's like rare. It's like 1 in 10.
Mm-hmm.
But that most of the time it won't meld together. That's why these others need a human host that still has a soul in the body.
Mm-hmm.
Because a demon has a hard time actually getting into and taking over the entire human whatever, because it just doesn't work right.
Because the flesh will reject it, and that's how it dies.
Exactly.
It's like getting an organ transplant, and that's not compatible or something.
And they have here's an interesting thing, and it's something I wanted to talk about too. One of the things that the clones told this guy was that they have these machines, and I wouldn't call them machines. They're just like a remote control. But they send out a frequency with these dogmen in particular type creatures that affects their the hearing. It messes with their hearing because they're prone to high-pitched noises.
Mm-hmm.
So they use a high-pitched frequency that they themselves can't hear, but that the dogman can hear, and that they it'll drop them to their knees and they'll writhe around on the ground. And they'll see this black stuff squirt out of their ears.
Ew.
Yeah. And so he says that is, how they're able to control them. So they don't have a lot of fear of the dogman because they have this high-pitched frequency that they can use. On the blood drinking, he didn't call them vampires, but he knew what they were. Let's call them vampires. Guess what they are? On the blood drinking flying creatures, and some of them don't have wings in their blood drinking. So there's two different types. One is more human than the others. Obviously, the flying one is more akin to a flying gargoyle-looking creature, but it's a vampire. And then one is a human-looking creature with pointy ears, and it's a vampire. One of the things that they do with them is they have another weapon for them, and it does something inside of them, and it'll make like blood come out of their pores. So the vibration, it'll cause them to shake and vibrate, and it causes them to leak blood from their pores. So that is another weapon that they use. There's another creature, which I would just say is probably the rake. And these things have a type of sonar, and they have a weapon that disrupts that. And these things will just drop and just stand there sort of in a stasis, and they can walk up and incapacitate them. They don't typically want to kill them, but they'll shock them or grab them or put a collar on them and just take them down. So there are weapons for all of these creatures. They also describe what I think was probably a Bigfoot type creature, and how they take them down is the same thing. They do something that restricts their breathing, and it causes them to like suffocate, and they just basically hit the ground gasping for air. There's all these different weapons they have. And if some of these beings have an immunity to some of these things, it's very rare, but it's like a genetic mutation. And so they'll use something else, like something that the canid is susceptible to, not just the hearing that'll throw off and knock out their equilibrium, but then the smell. So they have this type of gas that they can use on these dogmen that'll make them breathe it in, and they'll choke and they'll stop what they're doing. They can use that on the Bigfoot too. The vampires, not so much. It doesn't work. The only thing you can do is basically use this frequency that vibrates their body. And there really is nothing that can, if they use that same machine on one of these other beings, it'll kill them.
Mm-hmm.
So they only use it on those particular beings because they're not affected by the gas. They're not affected by anything but that. The hearing thing doesn't affect them. There's nothing that they don't breathe like normal people. They don't have a breathing apparatus, really. Their lungs are pretty much not used, and the atmosphere down there is suited for them. Because probably that species evolved that way to be like that. That's what I would guess. I'm just shooting I don't know 100%, but this is probably what we're dealing with. I would say the rake type creature probably has a pretty good, because it's got an exoskeleton, I believe is what it is. I think it's more akin to a bug. I know it sounds crazy, folks. This isn't, I think if I had to say what these things are, they were probably bioengineered by something akin to the Anunnaki a long time ago, and probably used as hunters to take things down, to retrieve. That was their versions of it. And maybe to take down dogmen, to bring back assets of their own. Rogue Anunnaki, something that'll latch onto their backs or their necks that could bite and take them down. Because according to this guy, he said that he's seen these rake type creatures take down giants. Yeah. So maybe that's what they do. They're more agile, and they can take down, because think about it. We were talking about a chimp earlier. Chimps actually are smaller than humans, but they're way stronger. They'll tear a human apart.
Oh,
A
yeah.
human my size has no chance against a chimp half my size.
Mm-mm.
They're way stronger. I have a question.
Yeah. Speak up a little
Sorry,
bit.
can you hear me?
And you can't see you on the camera either.
Oh, sorry. Well, I was going to ask you, that black stuff that was coming out of their ears.
That was Jack Daniels.
Oh, then never mind.
It was Guinness. Now go ahead.
No, obviously it was something trying to escape. Remember they said that they made
Like a parasite.
programmable matter.
Mhm.
Maybe that's in there to secure something, to more control over the host. But then whenever they do that, and that the thing's trying to leave, then that's they probably stop.
It could be their blood now.
It could have melded with their DNA, and
Mhm.
that's their structure, and that's a whole new level of stuff.
That's a whole new level of crazy.
Yeah.
When you start looking into the black goo. Have you guys seen how much of it is out there on TV and movies?
Yeah.
It's everywhere. We were talking about it a few years ago, and I didn't watch a lot of TV and movies, and I just keep getting bombarded with people saying, "Hey, check this out. It's the black goo. Check this out. There's black goo."
It was in the recent Dune movie too, that like the Baron Harkonnen, he was like he's like bathing in it. This black goo-like substance.
Well, there's a type of black goo that the vampires bathe in.
Mhm.
And it gets rid of these other parasites. I'm like, yeah, because that parasite doesn't want to share. Because that's what it is. The black goo in of itself is a parasitic being. I mean, I don't see how people can't see this. I mean, it's, and I'm going to be honest, folks. I'm not tooting our horn here, but there were a lot of people who were scared to tackle this in this field. When I came into this field, there were all these people like, well, you're a dogman. You got to do that. Don't they know? Yeah, but we need to figure out what the hell's going on. Why are dogmen spinning this stuff up?
Mhm.
Why are Bigfoot throwing it up? And, and I'm not even going to get into the aper side of the Bigfoot argument. They're so far behind in what's reality, it's not even funny. So you got all these people now who are coming out and just being like, yeah, Bigfoot's not what we thought it was. Well, hell no, it's not. And it never has been. And Dogman definitely isn't. These people who want this thing to be a flesh and blood, purely flesh and blood, I'm sorry, but you're wrong. There is a flesh and blood aspect to it, but what kind of flesh? That's the magic question there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, what are we dealing with? And nobody was asking any of the hard questions. And when I did it back in the day, or we did it, it was always laughing, ha, 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 these people are stupid. And then let's go and attack them and make fun of them and whatever.
They want to boil it down to it's just an undiscovered species because they're afraid of being laughed at, honestly. Like, I mean, even if they don't admit it, fine, whatever, but it's what it is. Like, they're afraid of not being taken seriously by I guess the mainstream science or whatever.
So mainstream doesn't take them seriously.
Yeah, so they'll parrot this facts, science, evidence, all this stuff, but you're trying to placate people who already think you're crazy for even believing in Bigfoot. They don't care about what you believe the nature of this creature to be. If you believe in Bigfoot, Dogman, whatever, they already think you're crazy. They will always think you're crazy. It doesn't matter what approach you take to this. So you might as well just ask the hard questions. Certain people, they're just never, ever, ever going to be on your side. You're not going to convince them. So why even bother? Don't be afraid to ask questions that make you sound crazy. You already sound crazy. These university types or whatever that you're trying to appeal to, they don't take you seriously. They think you're a tinfoil hat conspiracy theorist nut job, and they always will. So just stop being a little scared cat and actually ask, what is the nature of these things, and why are they doing these things that don't make sense, like just disappearing or having some sort of active camouflage or stepping out of portals or stepping out of orbs or whatever, bleeding black goo. Why do they have this black vapor coming off of them? Why is it that when people shoot them, they don't just drop and die? I mean, if it's an animal, then why does nothing seem to affect them really?
Why don't they act and behave like animals?
Yeah.
Why are they bleeding black goo? Because that is the question, isn't it? And everybody seems to have their own little, clique that they want to be in, and they want to back up and whatever. Folks, avoid all that. Okay? And don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting here telling you that we're the ones that have all the answers, not to listen to anybody else. We give you a whole list of people that we associate with. There's a very big list of people that I recommend. There's a very small list of people that I say don't deal with. And those are grifters and frauds. Simple as that. No, it's a good point, Tony. He says, unless a Dogman comes out and whoops their, they will never be on your side. They locked up the guy who invented washing your hands for health reasons.
Yeah. They put him in a nut house for suggesting that there's these tiny
Germs.
microscopic living things on your hands that will kill newborn infants if you handle them without washing your hands. That if you don't get rid of these microscopic organisms on your hands and you handle a newborn infant, that it's bad for the infant. And they threw him in a nut house. There are people today who are the equivalent of those people back then who threw the guy in a nut house who said maybe we should use soap and water. Some things never change.
Yeah. Have you seen, though, there was a couple people who don't like me, a year ago or so, and they did a video, these two guys, and I'm not going to say their names or anything like that, but they were basically saying that I was the reason they needed to bring back nut houses.
Yeah.
These two guys, one of them's still at it, and they were saying that they should throw me in a nut house. And they had people in there going, yeah, amen, brother. Like, and I'm like, yeah, dude, this is exactly the problem right here. They have done nothing to contribute to this community whatsoever. They've taken from it, and they've grifted, and they've frauded, and they've lied, and they've cajoled and threatened. That's all they've done. And people are applauding them. And the persons or people that are trying to bring you the real, they're talking about they should throw me in a nut house. You know how many people we've talked to over the years who've given us this information and wanted us to stand up and say something? And I'm guilty of not saying something soon enough because I've had a lot of this stuff for a long time, and I just didn't think people were ready for it. Folks, there are things that I'm talking to people now that may not be released for 2 to 6 months. And I don't know if you're ready to hear it yet. I don't. Because you had people just a year ago, and they had 100 people in there. I don't know how many were real people, but let's say half of them were real. They had 50 people, and they're believing it, that they should throw me in a nut house. These people are vocal, and they're mean and nasty. And they've even talked about killing me. And not just once. Not a couple. They've talked about this multiple times. They've had lunatics in there talking about coming and dealing with me and taking care of me. And judgment was coming on the day that I was going to go to the symposium. I ended up getting sick, probably by the grace of God. Sometimes when bad things happen to you, you think, oh, but what if it's God, though, saving you from something worse? Yes, yellow, yes. We're not. Am I joking, Anthony?
No, not at all.
No, that's true.
I mean,
They've
these
absolutely
crazy posts.
advocated murdering me.
They even cited the exact date that Wolf was supposed to be at the symposium, talking about judgment is coming on the 29th, right? So, yeah, I mean, it's not an exaggeration, and it's because, I mean, what it boils down to is that
You know what's crazy
Wolf
about
has
all
the
this?
guts to talk about these things that they think makes them sound crazy. Go ahead, Nelly.
Is these people, they have to know that you're telling the truth and you're spreading the truth, yet they hate you so much that they would rather get rid of somebody that's going to benefit a larger group of people all because of pure hatred for you, because you hurt their feelings. That's ridiculous. I mean, think about that. I mean, that's like, I can't wrap my head around it. As much as you don't like somebody, if they're doing good for the community, why? 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 I don't understand. That's it. I can't get it. It doesn't get any crazier than that. Well, I'm sure it does, but it's bizarre.
Yeah, and for those of you who say, well, just don't talk about whatever. I mean, most recently, their attacks, like I said, and I'm not going to get into a big thing, but they got some of our shows demonetized. And we had to appeal and have YouTube go in and manually look at them and say, okay, because we're not making enough in donations to keep the doors open. We're not making enough with the Patreon to keep the doors open. So the ads are very important. And so now they're attacking that. They're attacking the foundation. It's ridiculous. It never ends. It never ends. But be aware of it. and do what you can to help support us. And so we can stay on the air and keep fighting the good fight. Like I said, in the last days before the return, there's going to be people, and we're not expected to survive. If you think that you're going to be just magically whisked away and everything, that's not how that works. I'm sorry to tell you that. But what's going to happen is a lot of us aren't going to make it. But that's a physical thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't fear the first death. Who cares? That's just going on to where your true form is, right? I mean, it's going to happen. And these evil people they'll replicate to the point of like overpopulating with their replication. Their evil will be replicated everywhere. And they'll snuff out a lot of light. But it's good to slow it down. Why it's important for that is because when Jesus returns, he's going to have to marshal the forces of what's left here. And if you just fold like a cheap suit, then you're easy. They just go on to the next victim. And they just keep devouring and devouring and devouring and devouring. And they're so evil and sick, they probably don't even care. What they care about is their own comfort, their own being, their own whatever. They're not looking at all of us as being connected. They don't look at us as all brothers and sisters, and they don't care. They do not care about that. They each one care about themselves. These beings that were on this base, what they cared about was themselves. Do you think that they're all in a little group together and they're having a good time? No. The people, and they're people, let's put it that way, they're just people.
Mm-hmm.
And they're evil people who are making these chimeras, these beings. You know that they argued in Congress about it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And the Democrat Party, I kid you not to get political, but they literally fought to keep chimeric, whatever you want to call it. What's it called? Technology.
Mm-hmm.
To keep it in play. They didn't want it to be shut down. And I'm not saying the Democrat Party as a whole. I'm saying there were many on the Democratic side that didn't want it to be shut down. I would dare say that they've probably sold this technology to Ukraine. What do you think is happening to a lot of these weapons that are going over there? I bet a lot of it's being sold. Conventional warfare weapons. This includes assets too. How many countries now do you think have this technology? How many enemies of this country do you think now have the ability to make an army of monsters? I'd hazard to guess there's probably quite a few now. So the United States was accused of taking werewolves into Iraq and Afghanistan. I kid you not. That is, look it up on the internet. Look it up on YouTube alone. You'll get a bunch of hits on it. I'm not even joking, folks. I'm being dead serious, man. And these don't listen to these nut jobs here that are doing all this crazy attacking. Because I'm trying to tell you the real. Go look. Don't just take my word for it. Trust me, but go look for yourself. Because that's what they're doing. And how many of these people, when we pulled out of Afghanistan, do you think that technology just, oh yeah, we took it all with us. They didn't have any. We didn't leave any of our werewolves behind. No, yeah, we did. Roaming around out there. Oh, they already had their own too. They didn't just have giants. They have Goatman, Dogman, all kinds of Nephilim out there. The technology goes way back. I'm telling you, it's probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. It's all cyclical. Why do you say in the Bible, I mean, it's nothing new under the sun. Whatever has been will be. It'll be again, believe me. It's a wheel.
It's been done before.
It's been done before. There's been a me a long time ago doing it, saying it, whatever. There's a movie with Adam Driver. I can't remember the name. It was like 65 million or 65. I don't know the name of it. Something. He crash lands on a planet. He's got all this technology. And it turns out that it's 65 million years ago, Earth. And then there's this asteroid that's coming, and his spaceship or whatever is telling him, hey, there's about to be a cataclysm. You need to get off that planet. And he's got all this technology. And this technology, this is 65 million years ago. And you're going, wow.
The movie is 65.
Huh?
The movie is 65, right?
65?
Yeah. Right.
Then it was something like that. We watched it. Remember, honey? And there were like these dinosaurs. Yeah. We were watching that, and we were scared for our lives at the same time. We were because of the Maha movement, honey. Maha, literally, make America Hitler again. Oh my gosh, it's terrible. What are we going to do? Maybe we can move to Canada or somewhere else.
Everything I don't like is Hitler.
Whatever it is, I think I see becomes Hitler's mustache to me.
Yes, Adam Driver, James.
Or everything I don't like is a Russian bot.
Yeah.
What about a Russian sold?
Hey, that's the Russian bot. You know it's that. Because if you look really close under a microscope, they're all drinking vodka and doing this like Russian dance. I knew it. These are Russian bots. These are the Russian. They're the bots. They're literally Nazi Russian bots.
These are not the bots you are looking for.
These are not the bots you want in your house. My bots are all inclusive DIEIO hires.
DIEIO.
Putin is my co-pilot. He's not mine, but he's right. You know what him and Roseanne Barr have in common? Do you know what Putin and Roseanne Barr have in common? I'm going to tell you. They both believe in vampires. You know Kanye does too? He's crazy, right? He's nuts. You know he's crazy. Look at what his girlfriend did. She came out there and took her clothes off. But you know what? Broken clocks are what they are.
I mean, crazy doesn't mean wrong.
Yeah. Just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're not following.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you right now, folks, there are a lot of people coming out and saying it. Roseanne, she was on with Tucker Carlson. I kid you not. She's like, they're vampires, Tucker. I don't care what you say. They're eating babies. They're eating human flesh. Putin's over there like, yeah, their bellies are full of human flesh. The vampire ball is coming to an end.
How about that girl who disappeared?
What about the guy on that Chinese flight?
Oh,
He's like, we're all doomed. This is a time loop.
Yep.
You got David Icke talking about Tales from the Time Loop. This is, folks.
Something's going on.
You got reptilian vampires. You got regular vampires. You got regular reptilians. Taste the rainbow. Embrace it. Right?
No one said Putin.
Did you hear that?
What was that?
What was
I heard that.
It sounded like a hyena. I kid you not, it did. So let's get to our guy here in this show. He gets out of the military, and get this, he goes outside. He's living out on a couple of acres here in Texas. He's got a garden. He's like, and I'm out there in this garden. He's like, and I get contacted by a couple guys in suits. This is the 20% of why I think maybe he was followed in the beginning. He's confronted. These guys come out there to his garden and they talk to him. And they asked him to come in to talk to one of the higher-ups about what he may or may not have seen. Because one of these assets, and they're not referring to the wolf-like whatever, had gone AWOL. Asset is in a clone. And they asked him about it. He's like, I'm not going into any facility. I can sit here and talk to you on the porch right now. So he goes and they sit down. He takes off his gloves. And he says, the only thing I remember is talking to one of these assets, as you call them. I just thought he was a person. He just played it off, played dumb, right? They knew he was lying. He said, we know, you know. And he's like, never told me anything. We didn't have anything, any kind of conversation other than, just he asked some questions about what it was like to be up top. I told him. He said, if anything, they told him, they said, if anything weird, here's a card. If anything weird comes around, let us know. We were in the area and we thought we'd stop by and talk to you. About 2 days later, something weird happened. His cat disappeared. He's like, I'm outside, I'm on the back porch, and I see this wolf-like creature standing on the other side of my picket fence. He's like, we had a tall white picket fence. He's like, my wife's idea, not mine. He goes, I had a garden, I had some fruit trees. It was a nice little 2.5 acres, whatever. He said, this being opens the fence, looking right at me, and comes in to my backyard. He's like, I'm on a porch on 3 steps up, and this thing is still taller than me. He's like, and this thing could speak to me. And it was like, don't try to run. Don't try to grab a gun. It was letting me know. And it walked across his yard, never breaking eye contact, and just opened the latch to the other side and politely walked out of my backyard. He's like, at that point, I looked and I saw 2 other that looked like this thing on the other side of the fence, going in between mine and the neighbor's house. The next day, he gets visited by those 2 guys again. And one of them asks him the question. They're like, you know that something was in your neighborhood last night. We've been looking for it for a week. And he's like, you didn't tell me that this thing was, that's what that was. You were asking questions about somebody that I talked to when I was on that base. And they said, you're on a need to know basis. You don't need to know. He's like, then you don't either. He's like, I saw 3 of your buddies out here last night. And they're like, oh, they're not our buddies. They're property. And we're going to retrieve them. No, this wasn't recent. This was over 10 years ago. But he said, you know, and that's even scarier. The fact that that's technology was around 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Probably been around longer than that. And this was, 10 years ago when this happened. Because he ended up on another base, and then he was discharged and he got out. He says, when you stop and he goes, and you think about how crazy it is that these things are just roaming around. He said, is it a coincidence that they're around, that my wife's cat disappeared? Why is this happening? And they just walked off. Are they supposed to do something to him? That's what he wondered. So he moved clear across the country. Now he lives up in the Northwest. And he asked me this question. He goes, you get reports of these beings, the different things, right? I said, yeah. And he said, are there naturally occurring ones? Is that real? I said, yes, I do believe there are. Naturally occurring, I don't know if you want to call it that, but there are beings that are there that aren't necessarily replicated. But they're doing this. This is a program that they've instituted, I believe. It's been going on for a long time. What do you do? Because we know people in our personal lives I know these people personally, who've shot these things and then had people come and, confiscate things from them and even lock them up temporarily, debriefing them and putting them through the ringer. The question, though, is if I, as an individual, as a citizen, what happens to me if I actually defend myself against one of these things? And the scary thing is,
get charged with
who knows?
Company.
What if you use deadly force on one that's trying to hurt you, and then it turns into a man? Can you imagine that? But I mean, the only thing you would have going for you is there's a naked guy there. You could be like, this naked guy. I mean, he broke into my house, tried to eat my pet.
You gotta have a handy dandy little extra pocket knife, put it in his hand. Hey, you come at me with a knife. I got a right to defend myself.
Well, you'd probably have marks on you too. So
if not, you can just put some marks on you,
I mean, we joke, but what? I mean, let's be serious. What do you do?
Hide the body. I mean, what could you do? I mean,
He was going through my underwear drawer. I wear thongs. I can't have them tearing up things or messing up my. This is how I make my livings. I'm a stripper. What, I should make out without a nickel? I mean, I got to live too. I can't have the wolf man coming in here and eating me or tearing up, the delectable parts of me that people pay for.
the delectable parts.
Being serious. So, defend yourself, then walk away and say nothing. That's what Wedge says. Wedge is probably correct.
Like, what would you do? Like, what would you do?
I don't know. I sang a song about this. Let me get my guitar out. It's actually just a little plastic spoon, but I'm going to play it.
I want to
Let
hear.
me tune it.
Make sure you tune that thing to drop D tuning.
What would you do if a werewolf came for you? What would you do if you were sitting on the toilet making doo-doo? He comes for you. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got.
It's a work in progress.
He's
He's workshopping it.
We got some. We're spitballing. We got it.
Get it in 432 kilohertz.
Spilling's
Megahertz.
dancing to it.
That's right. What would you do? It's pretty catchy, though, right?
James Estrada, you're holding it upside down.
Hold it upside down. Let's see. Is it supposed to be this way?
How about, honey, you can add more to it. Let's hear it.
That was actually it was an 8-string, James.
Came
You
through
don't know
the
what you're talking
wall
about.
for me while I was sitting there making pee. I was scared as could be. So I grabbed my gun. Believe me, folks, this wasn't fun. I had to shoot. This dude was running around with his flopping root. What was I going to do? I had to. When the cops came, well, I was to blame. I killed the werewolf. And they said, "You're going to jail, boy. What a shame." Because all that's on the floor is a naked man. Oh, boy. I told him I did everything I can. But you're still going to jail, and you'll probably go to hell. A bunch of bad stuff happens in country songs. This man came wearing a thong. I think his name was Leviathan. Well, all we can do is hope that never happens, right? That's all we can do. We can only try. We can hope and pray that we're not on the toilet someday and that the wolf man comes through the window and, he's an asset.
Wouldn't it be crazy if someone contacted you and said that happened to them and they tell you how they
were on the toilet?
No.
Mm-hmm.
No, that they said that they killed a
It's definitely
werewolf
toilet humor.
and it turned into a man.
I don't think we have any stories like that, but I mean, wouldn't it be par for the course though? Because in the skinwalker tradition, now I've heard of this. I've heard of people hitting coyotes and elk and wolves even, and then there's a dead person laying there.
Oh man.
Yeah, somebody sent me a channel, another story from another channel,
Uh-huh.
and I can't even remember the name of it because I didn't watch it all. But they just said skip to the such and such mark, and I did, and I watched it a few months ago, or maybe it was more recent than that. But it was a Navajo reservation, and somebody had hit a deer,
Uh-huh.
and it was
A person.
yeah, and this guy had gone to some kind of ceremony, and he watched a native change into this. It looked kind of like a wolf's head, but the body was almost insect-like. It was weird. It was really weird. Yeah, I don't even remember what channel it was. I'll go back and look. It's on one of my. I kept the video.
Okay.
I kept the video, and it was crazy, man. And they ended up like hitting. It was a video. They hit a being or whatever, and it was one of their friends. It was a human. They found this guy laying there behind a rock, dead. He'd been hit, but he was. When the guy hit it, it was actually an elk, the size of an elk, anyway. Yes, Andrus, that is a very good point. Yep, there was a guy. I got a ghost story like that recently too. That was really creepy from a dude. No, that was a guy's name was Jaime. I remember that. His name had my uncle's name, and I talked about that on Dogman Encounters. It was a guy in a porta-john, and he came in early all the time. I'll retell that story. I remember this one. That guy told me that story twice. Like he's when I had him back then, I had time and the luxury to have people tell me more than once the story. Which if I have time now, I mean, I'll be honest, I don't, But yeah, the guy gave me the story like twice, man. No, it wasn't the confessionals, Jordan. It was another channel where they illustrate the. Gosh, I can remember.
Where was it? Spelling Tea wants to know. She missed that part. Was that on one of the a different show, or
Where
what,
was that?
The Man in the Porta.
Oh, it was at North Texas.
Oh.
It was up near, I believe it was up near Childress, North Texas, or maybe that's where he was from. But he was in a porta-john, and I'll tell that story right now. He was in a porta-john. Anyways, let's finish up the other one. The guy, that was it. I mean, he moved away to Arizona, and he hasn't had anything happen since. But thank you to Simon for reaching out and then getting me in touch with Denny, because Denny's story was very compelling. It was interesting. I mean, and even if it's not true, because I don't think he was making it up, dude. I don't. He was very matter of fact. He didn't stop and go, let me think about it. No, he just, and even some people who do that doesn't mean.
Oh, the one where the elk turned into a dude. Where was that?
I don't remember, but let me finish.
Oh, sorry.
So I'm sorry, honey.
No, that's okay.
You're just very distracting.
I am.
So what happened was this guy was in a porta-john, right? And he came into work early. Like he always came in early. And it was really freaky. Like he heard something walking around the porta-john, walking around it, and it sounded like it was on four legs, like it was a canid. He heard it sniffing and pushing the door. And then he heard something he could hear it stand up, and he saw the thing go in, like it pushed the top of it. So this thing was on four legs. It was using its front paws. But he doesn't think it was. He thinks it was, and he didn't see it. Like he didn't get a look at it, but he thought it was a werewolf. Because of what it did, it pushed the porta-john over. And so he just sat there in this mess until, and so he was yelling for help about 30 minutes later when he heard trucks and stuff pull up, because he came in early. He was always early. So he got the poo-poo water on him. Yeah, if I remember correctly, if I remember correctly, that's what it was. I think I still have that one in my archives somewhere. But anyways, the guy's name was Jaime, and he told me this story, and I think he told Scorpio that story too, like separately from me, because we worked on that site together. And what ended up happening with this guy, like when he got out, like he didn't see the footprints or whatever. He just wanted to get away from it. But then later that day, one of the guys had on his phone had these footprints, and they were big, huge wolf-like prints, but they didn't look like a normal wolf. And one of the guys that he worked with subsequently told him that he had seen this bipedal canid-like thing go around behind one of the heavy machinery one night, and he quit working there at night after that. He was like, I'm done. So yeah, it was pretty crazy. And he believes that the grunting and the growling was the sounds of a wolf-like creature. He fully believed that it was a werewolf. Like he did. He totally believed that. And he had a nightmare about it too. And his wife woke him up, and he was screaming and sweating, and it was
Do you think
terrible.
that was just purely from the shock of what he was dealing
I
with?
don't
Or
know.
do you think it was
But he saw a werewolf type creature in his mind, while he was trying to get into the porta-john to get to him. Needless to say, he would still come in early, but he would just hang back. He wouldn't. He goes, and if I had to use the bathroom, I just held it. He's like, I'm not going in there to use the
That's
bathroom.
a scared man.
He said all that coffee he drank made him use the bathroom. You remember that guy, right, Anthony? We used to work with him.
Because I interrupted
You
you.
remember? You remember Jaime?
Who?
The
Oh,
guy
yeah.
that used to work with us.
Yeah, the Mexican guy.
A little short guy.
Mhm.
Real short. He was like 5'2", 5'3". He's like, I'm so small, I'd be a snack for that guy.
Mhm.
And I was like, yeah. But he was a brave dude, though, to still keep coming in early, you know. But he used to park kind of off by the dark where that Porta-John was. I would have been parking up there by where the lights were, man.
Did he start parking somewhere else?
Yeah.
Poor guy.
Yeah. Because when I knew him, he would come in early and he would always park right under the lights. Tony said, either way, there's going to be poo. What would you do?
Oh yes,
You're
there
in
will
the
be poo.
Porta-John making poo. Sorry for the toilet humor, folks. But, you got to imagine, though, if a werewolf comes in here, unless it's wearing clothes and it's a werewolf and you do cap it. Be honest, it's going to turn into a man. And then you're going to have to tell the police, the popos come and you're like, hey.
It was a werewolf.
That was a werewolf. And the cop is like,
test you for drugs.
well, now it's a naked guy laying on your floor. And you'd end up like Nancy Pelosi's husband. Right? Trying to explain why a naked guy is there.
Woo. Wedge said no cranberries for me because it's when I interrupted you.
It's okay. You can interrupt. I forgive you. I pardon you.
No, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, folks. Anyways, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. I hope that you enjoyed the show. Thank you for everybody that donated. And
Yeah,
became
thank you,
a
guys.
member. Bear with us because we're going to do some mail-offs tomorrow. But if you don't get your stuff in the next several days, then you'll be on the next batch or whatever. But I got to tell you, we're going to change out the system. We're going to change it out because it's got to be overhauled. We have too many stories that come in and they bury the well, there's never too many stories, but that email needs to be kept for stories, and it buries the giveaway stuff. And then the giveaway stuff is not fluid. You'll have one person, I won the giveaway. Then there's a story, I was abducted, and then there's another story. I saw a werewolf, my grandmother, and it was wearing my grandmother's panties. And then
What?
Yeah, man, I'm joking. I'm kidding. It was wearing a thong. It was a Leviathan. And so then you get another, I won the giveaway 2 weeks ago. You didn't get me. Sorry. And then there's another story. I saw a praying mantis, and luckily for me, it just grabbed my brother.
A lichen thong.
And now I inherited everything. Thank you, Levia mantis. So that's what's going to happen. We're gonna do a new email address just for giveaways. And I'm sorry for talking about those people a couple of days last whatever. You want us to not. I get it, but do what you got to do, man. If they're disparaging people on their channel, then report them. That's what they get, because they shouldn't be doing that. So that's it. But I'm sick of this. I'm sick of trying to do this and run my businesses and have to fight with these people every damn day, coming up with the most disgusting things they can come up with. They're just liars. They're constant liars. I mean, that's what they are. Grifters, every one of them, frauds. It's what they do. They just they're committing fraud in every way, and they don't have anything in their lives other than hating us. That's it. Danny Hunting Bear says, thank you for the great show and conversation. Thank you. Thank you to everybody and also if you're a moderator, hit me up and tell me what you want, because moderators get for free. So whatever you guys want to do. So right now, if you haven't won, we're going to do a giveaway. We're going to just do one tonight, but we're going to do another one on Friday and then 3 more on Sunday. So we'll do at least one tonight. So tell me if you haven't won. And we're going to give you a few seconds. If not, we're going to pick somebody who has one. So if your name is in green, tell me you haven't won. Let's do it.
The show's already over.
There we go. Cancer
Sarah
73.
73 says haven't won. There you
I
go.
think that they're in India. They live in India.
Who?
Who?
Cancera.
Sarah lives in India?
I think so.
Oh,
Correct me if I'm wrong, please.
did they say that?
I thought they did.
What we would be doing for that situation, once we get the other website going, and it's just as simple as us going over there and dealing with it. We're going to try and do that tomorrow. But right now, because we moved, folks, bear with us. We literally stayed the night out at the ranch. Was it night before last? Or last, was it night before last?
Yeah.
And then last night we stayed here in Cedar Park. So you got two different places, you know. You basically got North Austin, and then we're out there. So,
Yeah, he lives in India.
yeah. So what we would normally do with that situation is just send you the money so you could go and buy you a piece of merchandise because we can't ship to India. But what we'll do is, you know, if you won, Kinsera, we'll just send you some money, okay, and you do what you want with it. All right. So there you go. And that's what we're going to do from now on. So eventually, though, when we get the other things set up, and it's just like I said, as simple as finding the time to go over there and get it set up, because we have Seven Clay working on a lot of things for us. They're doing our shirts for our company too, and that's not easy. There's like, I think they're making 50 shirts or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we have the tumblers, and we did I think 100 of those. So yeah, it's a massive undertaking. Everything we got them doing, and then they've made the hoodies. They're making keychains, because if you get a swag bag, you're going to get a keychain and stickers with it too, right?
Mm-hmm.
And eventually, the catalog is going to have us, and like I think now we're up to like a dozen other podcasters, YouTubers. So if you want a Paranormal Soup shirt, or Paranormal Paul from his channel, or you want the Blondes and Booze, Tex, BMR. Abe Cius, who else?
All
we
good
got? There's a bunch of
channels.
people.
Are you working with the
Yeah,
Tony?
Lyle Blackburn, Ken Gerhardt, all of them are going to have their own merchandise in there.
Tony?
Who?
Tony?
Tony
Confessional?
Merkel? I don't. Does he? I think he has his own. Merkel
Oh, does he?
Media.
Okay.
I don't know. I don't know
Pretty
what
sure he
Merkel's
does.
got. I don't think he needs us. Merkel's pretty big. So is
Yeah.
Ninocchio. Although they do sometimes wear my stuff. Because our logo is cool. Like, why wouldn't you wear it?
Yeah.
You know. I mean, there's people that hate us. You know, like I said, they're holding grudges from way back. I mean, and if I beat you up downtown back in the 90s, come on, man. Like, let it go, right?
That was
Right.
so 1990s.
That was back in the 90s, dude. They're like, I can't hear my left ear. Well, you know, I mean, I hit pretty hard. I got a good, you know, right hand there. Maybe you should be quiet.
Lola says she wants a hoodie. Haven't had any luck ordering one. She's a mod for us.
Whatever you want, just let me know. Send me your information. But let's do this. We got the email. Can you set it up by tomorrow? Or, I mean, by the next show, by Friday?
Yeah, I think I can.
Okay, because I would do it. But you know what? I got a million things going on.
Yeah.
So let me deal with life. I have a lot. A lot. A lot. I do.
You're panicking on
Yeah,
air.
man. I'm totally panicking here. Oh,
Oh, here, Anthony.
I like this hat.
Help her. I don't know how to do
What do you
that.
think of this hat? It kind of looks like you're going hunting.
It does. It looks like you're on a safari.
If I had a gun right here.
What kind though? Like an
Like
elephant one?
No, like
To
a
hunt-
rifle.
That's-
Like
What are you hunt? What are you hunting?
30-06.
You're hunting 30-06s?
Do you know what that is?
It's a gun.
If you're hunting an elephant, you probably need a 4-bore or something.
I'm not even hunting elephants. Why would I hunt an elephant?
Okay,
Elephant
then
doesn't-
what
I
are you
would never hurt
hunting,
an
though?
elephant.
I thought you just said you were hunting an elephant.
I didn't say that. She said that.
No, it's
Oh,
you're
okay.
getting confused. What are you hunting? So tell us what you're hunting.
I just used this. Just
Was it a claw?
So,
a little
like,
claw hand?
small
I'm just
game.
gonna run out and jump on a hog
You can
and
get a 22 for that.
You'll probably look like Martis when he was riding Elvira around.
Elvira comes around the room and Martis is draped over, and he was a baby.
It was so
Let me
funny.
tell you a funny story about Martis before I go here. This hat does kind of look Elmer Fuddish. I'm hunting rabbits. But I don't know. I like it.
I
I'll
like
turn
it.
it backwards, man.
It's kind of okay like that. No. Change it. 47. You're right. Who cares?
So,
Let me see. What did you do?
nothing. Nothing. You get
But,
nothing.
I want,
Nothing. I
but,
want nothing.
but if you were hunting, what would you hunt? Just pigs?
Hogs.
Hogs?
Yeah.
Well, good.
Here's the thing. If you like, okay, my cat used to come into my study. Okay. And I say he comes to my study, the door is closed, but this little dude, he knows how to open doors. And I kid you not. And he's a spooky little black cat, but he would just run up and he would jump, and then he would open the door, and then he would get in and he would hop up on the chair. You're going to think I'm making this up. Anthony, Nelly, y'all know how he is. He would put his paws on the desk and he would scoot. I only saw him do it a couple times, but he would always get real close to the desk. So I figured he probably did it more than once. And sometimes he would go, my door to my study would be open and they'd be hanging out in there. I say they as in him and his pals, because he would open the door. He knew how to open the doors. The other cats could never master what he would do. He's long and skinny. So he would open the door and he would scoot and then he would lay on the desk and look at me and like, hey, what are we doing? And I would be like on the phone doing the show and stuff, and I'd be like, Martis, quit. And I'd and he would start pawing back at my hand. And I'd be like, Martis, get off. And he would just be like doing that, like slapping back at me, like, quit, like knock it off. I'm here. This is happening. We're doing this. And so then I just leave him alone and then he'd eventually go to sleep. And and then to get him off of it, I would spin him around in circles and he would jump off. Panzer, he braces himself.
Yeah.
He's like, what are we doing? Are we doing this again? Is this the tilt-a-whirl? He was cool with that. So the other day I had to use the restroom really bad. So I go to the ranch, I get inside, and Martis and the cats have been out there. Right. We're about to move them over to the house because we're almost finished with the flooring. And so I go into the restroom and I'm standing there and I look over, there he is. He's under the bed and he thinks he's hiding. He's like, and I'm like, Martis, because I don't want to leave him because if we close the door, he'll be stuck in there. He'll be stuck in there. And so I don't want to lock him in the bedroom, so we have to go out there every day and check on him or whatever, because my brother's been working off and on. So on the days when my brother works, I got to go out there and feed and water the animals with Anthony and Nelly, right? Or a combination of us three, or somebody's got to do it. So I was out there, right? And there he is under the bed and he's just licking his paws. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, get out of here. You're going to get trapped in here again. Because he got trapped in there one day and he pooed all over the towel. He went to the towel because it was kind of like his, the only thing he had kind of like a litter box.
Well, it was next to the toilet. I'm sure that he was trying to use the toilet, but failed.
He was trying to use the toilet. He pooped all in one little spot on the towel that was on the floor. Right. And so, but he doesn't normally do that. He's not that way. He really doesn't. And so he was probably like, well, you locked me in here. Well, I was trying to avoid that. So I tell him to go. And he's licking his paws and he stops and he does this thing where he looks at me. He's like, he scowls at me like and then he's just like, so I stop getting onto him. He starts licking his paws again. And then I tell him again, I'm like, Martis, get out. And he stops. He looks at me and he's like, what? Like he's got this attitude. And then he looks around like he's looking around like, oh, you're talking to me because I don't see any other animals in here. You're talking to me? And I'm like, yeah, I'm talking to you. You need to leave. And then he goes to run out and he's such a snarky little turd. Like he'll jump up and yank your pillow on the floor or do something crappy to you. Right. And so that's what he did. Like he jumped up and knocked some stuff over and ran out. And then he'll even close the door behind him. Like, I'm not even joking, man. This cat is like,
something else.
He's something else, man. And I was just like, dude, what in the hell is up with my cat? Why is my cat so weird, man? He's crazy. He's nuts. And then sometimes, like when I'm sick, he'll come and visit me a lot. Him and Baby, our little gargoyle-looking dog, they'll come and visit me, man. And I'm not joking. They'll lay hands on you. I say lay hands on you because Baby will come up to you. Am I lying?
No.
She'll touch you and you'll feel better. I'm not even joking, man.
And very sensitive.
Yeah. Martis does it too, man. Like I'll wake up and he'll be on my chest and he'll be like, hey, guy. And if you start, and I kid you not, Nelly, that he's done this too. You start to talk, he'll try to put his paw in your mouth. You're like,
oh, yeah.
What are you doing? And he's like,
he's just trying to shut you up.
I got you. I'm just gonna go to sleep here. Don't move.
Amy
Fatty.
Creel
I'm
said,
using your fat as a pillow. Quit. He doesn't want you to speak. He's just like, don't speak. I know just what you're thinking. So please stop explaining.
Amy Creel said,
Just stop because it'll hurt. Now he's that way, you know. And
read
like
Amy
I've seen
Creel's
him
comment.
do so many weird things, dude. Like when we had a gas leak one time at the old house, or we thought we did, and we loaded up into the car, and Marty's is just like in the back looking straight ahead. He's all like, we're going on an adventure. The other animals are all kind of milling, you know, like, you know, what's going on? Why are we all piled into this vehicle? And Nellie's like kind of like, she's like, I feel like I'm panicking, you know, because she was worried because we had left the ferrets. You remember that?
Yeah, we had to go back.
Yeah, and you were upset. You were like, we got to go back for the ferrets. And then Martis put his hand on her back like, my child is going to be okay. And Nellie was like, what are you doing? It wasn't Tony. It was Martis. Martis was like touching her back like, hey, it's all good. And she's like, I'm worried about the ferrets. We need to go back. So we did. I didn't go in and risk my life. I think Anthony did. I don't know. But I was like, hey, man, go get them. But anyways, folks, that's it. That's all the time we have for tonight. Thank you for tuning in, everybody. Thank you for being a part of the show, and good night.